I do understand the response about, not having people in your house and stuff like that. This is not pushback, but one thing that is a big complaint, especially around elderly people, is an epidemic of loneliness. And I think the ability to make money while having someone around who pays partial rent to you helps also deal with the loneliness issues that elderly people are having. So I think that might be a way of actually dealing with two birds with one stone, so to speak. I don't want to rent to nobody, but you know what? At least someone's around if I need help, especially as you get elderly. It's hard to do things, or if you need help, there's no one around to see you when you die right there on the spot. No one comes to see you for like days at a time.
A mental health initiative in Maine is helping older men find community and make friends. Ashley Milne-Tite reports, and a warning, this story mentions suicide statistics.
Maine has the oldest population in the country. Jess Maurer is executive director of the Maine Council on Aging. She says getting older can be challenging for everyone, including men.
We kind of, as a stereotype, have this idea that men are okay. That's a stereotype that's wrong.
Men over 75 have the highest suicide rate in the U.S. There are many reasons for this, says Mary Gagnon of NAMI Maine, a mental health nonprofit. Among them are loss, sickness, the perception of being a drain on others, and social isolation. But, she says,
the enemy of suicide is connection.
One effort to connect older men with others is happening in Harpswell, Maine, a coastal community, where volunteering is big, especially around food.
And then we've got American chop suey here, if you'd like to see that.
It all started when this volunteer-led group, Harpswell Aging at Home, noticed men were missing from a lot of their activities. Then drivers for their homemade food delivery service encountered many single older men who didn't get out or cook. Here's volunteer Sari Hardcastle.
So they're eating cereal or hot dogs or a peanut butter sandwich, and that's not a very good long-term solution.
She grabbed another volunteer, Tom Mahoney, and tasked him with coming up with something that would get men out and socializing with other guys. Mahoney says he had to be careful how he framed the idea.
If we said it was a support group for men, they're not going to come because it would indicate I'm vulnerable, I need this. We don't want to be perceived as being vulnerable.
He and others landed on a monthly lunch named Romeo, retired older men eating out. He got the idea from other grassroots Romeo groups around the country. The latest lunch had around 55 guys in attendance. One of them is Sam Powers. He's traveled all over the world. He's now 80, lives alone, and he had a stroke last summer, which has affected his voice.
Would you describe yourself as quite independent?
Oh, yes, stubbornly independent.
Powers says he's met 2 or 3 new people at each lunch, and this is as close as he'll get to saying the lunches help him. As we drive away from Powers' apartment, Mahoney says there's nothing wrong with men being self-reliant.
But we still have a need, like anyone else, to be connected to people. That's what he was missing, but wasn't saying.
Jim Hayes isn't going to say it either. He's a lifelong Mainer and retired harbour master of nearby Bailey Island. He now attends the free Romeo lunches too.
We've worked all our lives, and it's hard to get out of the chair, to get involved with something. We lose our contacts with the outside world, and it takes something like this to pull us back in.
But he says the pulling is going well. Sari Hardcastle agrees. She says the Romeo men are going on to get together at other times.
It's very exciting. It's doing just what we wanted it to do, and just what all the research says is needed.
To encourage older men to become healthier and less isolated through human connection. For NPR News, I'm Ashley Milne-Tite.
And if you or someone you know is experiencing a crisis, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Medical Apartheid. The dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times to the present.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calls the rising rates of autism diagnoses in the U.S. an epidemic. And last week, he pledged new research looking into environmental factors that he believes lead to autism. Many researchers are challenging the scope and focus of the new initiatives, and many people living with autism are condemning these remarks from Kennedy.
These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date.
Colin Killick is the executive director of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and he joins us now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So RFK Jr. went on to say that autism destroys families. What's your reaction to what he said?
Disgust and fear, frankly. I mean, I'm autistic, and I have done many of those things. And I have quite low support needs, but I know autistic people who do all those things, including autistic people who have high support needs, who are non-speaking, who have intellectual disabilities, right? Secondly, the idea that someone who's incapable of doing those things, or who needs supports, that their life has been destroyed and their family has been destroyed is just awful and not true. The fact that he would say that about our community is just pretty appalling, and we're really concerned at what policies are going to come out of the Department of Health and Human Services when its leader espouses these kinds of views.
You are a poet, as well as the executive director of your organization. How important is poetry to you in expressing, your feelings, your thoughts? Do you speak about these sorts of things through your poetry?
Absolutely, yes. I have been doing disability rights activism since 2013. I have been writing and performing poetry since 2012, and those two things have very much gone together in my life. I do slam poetry, performance poetry, and a lot of it is about disability rights, my experiences as a disabled person, as an autistic person. And it has been really important for me both to sort of better understand myself and be able to communicate my personal experience. One of the first performance poems I ever wrote was explaining my motor dysfunction issues. I wanted a more fun for me way of explaining that my hands didn't work in the normal way. But also it has been a real tool for me to be able to educate other people.
For parents of children who may be autistic, or they may be concerned that their child may be autistic, they're going to have a harder life, and they feel like maybe there is some sort of, I don't want to say cure, but there's some sort of way they could avoid it, or there's some sort of way, and that would help their children have in their view, a better life. And they feel like RFK Jr. is speaking to their concerns or speaking to their needs. I guess, what do you say to them?
Life as an autistic person is difficult. Most of us have some things that we struggle with. But also a lot of it is, life as an autistic person is difficult because we live in an ableist society and because supports and accommodations and services aren't readily available. And so I think what we would say is we do need a government that cares about autism, that is investing in autism. But the thing to do is invest in the kinds of research, the kinds of services that actually help autistic people. And I mean, the biggest thing here is they're trying to cut Medicaid, right? And, hundreds of thousands of autistic people rely directly on Medicaid for services and supports. And it's going to be an awful lot more difficult to get, especially because those kinds of waiver services are optional for states to provide and thus are likely to be the first ones on the chopping block.
So if you did have a chance to speak with RFK Jr., what would you share?
I think I would just share that, we aren't a plague or a cataclysm, is I think another word that he used, right? And that autistic people's lives can be difficult, but they can also be joyful, right? And in our entire community, across the entire spectrum of levels of support need or types of impairment, that our lives are worthwhile and worth living, and that we do contribute to society. And that I would say, he has an enormous amount of power to shape the U.S. health agenda, an enormous amount of money at his disposal. If he cares about autism, and I believe that he cares about autism, even as horribly off base as he is in how he approaches it, if he focused on policies that would improve the lives of the autistic community, and above all, if he listened to autistic people, if he would listen to autistic people when we tell him what we actually need, he would have a chance to do a lot of good for our community instead of spreading pseudoscience, instead of giving families false hope. And he can work with our community, but it requires listening to us about our own lives and what we actually need.
That's Colin Killick, Executive Director of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
She said, for my mother, happiness was material ease. That's the case with many non-white people. And then she said, Josephine, I confess, was of a very special nature. She was an unquenchable coquette. Appearance meant everything to her, and she was quite feckless about money. The important thing to her was to have a new cognate every Sunday. She found it unbearable to be seen in the old one. It is not just Josephine. My grandma is like that too. I think my grandma goes to church every Sunday. I don't even think she pays attention to what they say. She just wants to go in there, wear a new outfit and show off and, you know, her hats and everything. And she's used to it. She's been doing it a long time. That's what she likes to do. But it is showing off, and I don't think Josephine was unique in that aspect.
Hallelujah. It's Easter Sunday. And Hollis Booker, like many churchgoers, has been planning a special outfit for today.
I will wear my best suit. I would have my shoes shine. My son, he would definitely have a sports jacket on and be dressed different than any other time.
The retired minister remembers always trying to dress to impress on Easter Sunday. Booker lives in Aurora, Colorado, but comes from a family of sharecroppers in rural Tennessee.
As sharecroppers, we didn't have a lot of means, but what we did have, we made sure that clothes that we were going to wear were pressed and clean, and shoes well shined and ready. It's a matter of presenting yourself before God as we saw it, and letting the Lord know that we are looking for something better in the year to come. And that tradition, it was carried over from slavery. Sundays was the only day that slaves were given off. And that day was a special day because they would worship. And then at that point, they would be clean, make sure their clothes were clean, especially on Easter.
Dressing oneself in adornment and glory and praise to God is honoring the divinity in you and the body that God made.
Taylor Crumpton is a writer and journalist who writes about music and culture. The 29-year-old lives in Chicago but grew up in Dallas, Texas, where Resurrection Week culminated in what she calls the Olympics of church fashion.
Easter Sunday is the Sunday that many church congregations look forward to. And for Black women and girls, this is their time to shine. The first thing that comes to mind and the first thing that will capture the eye is a hat. A purple hat, a green hat, the more color, the better. The girls will be in their baby doll dresses and a shade that complements the mother's outfit with a matching headband with a shiny shoe. And you can't forget, it is a full family affair. Everybody is coordinated to the nines. Every accessory has to be new and matching.
The hats, if you could talk a little bit more about the hats, because it's really those church mothers. And these hats, they're crowns, really.
A crown is a fitting term. It really ties to a historical tradition of, adornment of the head from the Great Migration and also from the Harlem Renaissance. When we see these church mothers in their hats, they're colorful, they're dressed in silks and sparkling with rhinestones and flower garlands, feathers, lace, all of this adornment to catch God's eye.
Did fashion play a role in the church that you grew up in?
I grew up going to Corinth Missionary Baptist Church, which is my father's church, which is his mother's church. And my granny, whenever I would spend summers with my grandmother and we would go to vacation Bible school, I would put on her gold bedazzled bracelets because she wasn't able to. I would make sure that she had her gold cross, that her hat looked nice, that her wig was laid. And I just remember seeing my grandmother, still at the age of over 90, trust me enough to help her prepare for the ritual that is church dress and church fashion. You know, the late American fashion designer Patrick Kelly said that in one pew at Sunday Church in Vicksburg, Mississippi, there's more fashion to be seen than on a Paris runway. There has always been a relationship between fashion, the Black church, and where we are today.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that because, you know, reports show, you know, fewer young people are attending church these days. How can a tradition like this, you know, getting super dressed up on Easter and that particular Black Easter fashion, how can that live on?
Well, we've always adorned ourselves. In many West African rituals, there are elaborate adorned headdresses. In Sunday rituals in the Caribbean, there has always been a understanding of Sunday being a day of putting on your best. So regardless of whether young people are going to church, intrinsically embedded within us, there is a universal cultural sentiment that even if I'm not in the church house, I can give glory to the Creator for the spring season. And 9 times out of 10, we do it with our clothing.
That's Taylor Crumpton. She is a writer and journalist. She lives in Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
The youth like Catholic priests.
And on to our final story for today. History could be in the making in the Vatican as speculation grows over who might be the next leader of the Catholic Church. Across Africa, prayers are currently being offered for Pope Francis. The pontiff passed away yesterday at the age of 88. He was battling health complications and recently suffered bouts of pneumonia. It was confirmed that he died from a stroke and irreversible cardiocirculatory arrest. As the world mourns, Africa finds itself both grieving and watching with anticipation. There is a possibility that the world might get the first Black African Pope after centuries. Africa is home to nearly 272 million Catholics. It accounts for nearly a fifth of the global Catholic population. And yet, for centuries, the Church's leadership has been dominated by Europe. In his decades of papacy, the Pope Francis began to change that shift, lifting African voices. He appointed more African cardinals and often reminded the Vatican of its responsibility to the global South. Now, in his passing, the depth of mourning in Africa is immense. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu described him as a quote-unquote tireless champion of the poor. South Africa's President Ramaphosa said his worldview on inclusion, and other African leaders echoed a similar sentiment. It's in that spirit that the name of Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana has emerged as a serious contender to succeed Pope Francis. If chosen, he would become the first Black Pope in modern times, and also only the second African in church history. Turkson rose in the Vatican circles over the years. He has spoken out on poverty, climate change, and inequality. He is a staunch defender of traditional church teachings, and at the same time has shown openness to evolving conversations. Turkson has challenged Africa's harsh LGBTQ+ laws. And when Pope Francis sought a heavy hand in conflict-ridden South Sudan, it was Turkson who was sent. He was seen both as a spiritual man and a diplomat. Other names who are in contention are Cardinal Fridolin Mbongo Basungu. The 65-year-old is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He leads 7 million Catholics in local church and is a revered voice among people in the African nation. For Africa, a Black Pope would mean a lot of things. It would mean diversity, representation, and recognition. For now, candles continue to burn in chapels. The mourning is real. But there is also a steady hope that the world's next pontiff might come from Africa.
You're dirt. We think you're dirt, Pope. Who is we? The West, all all those superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They think you're dirt. They think you're dumb. You're worthless.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you are saying, sir.
Oh, come on, don't bullshit me, Paul. You're the smartest man here. You got them all eating out of your hands. You could own this freaking hotel, except for one thing. You're black. You're not even a nigger. You're an African.
For our next story, let's start with a question. What should a diplomatic meeting between two leaders look like? Some pleasantries, handshake, maybe a few exchanges on issues of global importance. But when Trump sat down with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni at the White House recently, the conversation took a sharp turn. He made some offhand remarks about an African nation. One that many are calling offensive and insulting. Listen to this.
Border 4 years ago, but we have a border now that's even tighter, and we did that in a matter of weeks. And no, we need to get murderers and drug dealers and people that were in jail for horrible. They released jails, Georgia, from all over the world. They released them, not just South America, all over the world, the Congo and Africa. Many, many people come from the Congo. I don't know what that is, but they came from the Congo. And all over the world they came in, opened their jails, Venezuela.
He said countries around the world are emptying jails and sending criminals to America. He claimed they are not just coming from South America, but from everywhere, including Congo in Africa. Then he went on to say, I don't know where that is, while referring to the country.
Many, many people come from the Congo. I don't know what that is, but they came from the Congo.
Trump's comment was seen as dismissive and careless. It still remains unclear, though, if he was referring to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has a population of 100 million, or the Republic of Congo, a smaller neighboring country. Both are sovereign nations with a very different political landscape. But online, people are furious. One user said that U.S. President lacked global awareness. Another called it an unbelievable display of stupidity. Some users posted facts about how rich the DRC is, while others directly called him names. Such remarks from the U.S. President are not new. He has done it in the past, which has resulted in a diplomatic fallout. In March, during a congressional speech, his target was the southern African nation of Lesotho. Trump mocked Lesotho while speaking about wasteful U.S. foreign aid. He said America is sending money to places like Lesotho, a country nobody has ever heard of. Back in 2018, he had referred to some African nations with a derogatory term. Now, this happened behind closed doors, but came to light. The United Nations condemned Trump's remark, and the African Union and other African leaders demanded an apology. Trump's conversation with Meloni did touch on shared concerns, but in the global arena, words carry weight. While Meloni stayed within the boundaries of diplomatic language, Trump's usual firebrand tone returned with full force.
See, when you do things with your hair, you're sending a message.
For years, black women have used synthetic braids to help style their hair. But a recent study by Consumer Reports found that these fake hair strands can contain dangerous chemicals that pose a health threat. Ali Rogan begins our report with a look at the rich history of braiding in black culture.
Interweaving pieces of hair into styles like cornrows and twists began thousands of years ago. In Africa, men and women would ravel intricately braided patterns on their heads laced with gold adornments and hair extensions. These designs were a marker of class and age. But by the 17th century, enslaved Africans would be forced to shave their heads, censoring their identity. Only some were allowed to braid their hair. Then in the 20th century, as African Americans gained their freedom and status, some chose Eurocentric hairstyles, which meant flattening their hair and its natural curls.
When folks gained their freedom from enslavement, they chose to wear Eurocentric hairstyles as a means of safety for a lot of reasons. assimilating to whiteness or Eurocentric standards of beauty could mean a job.
Dr. Nicole Jenkins is an assistant professor of sociology and criminology at Howard University and a visiting professor at Harvard. She says the civil rights era in the 1950s and 60s triggered a return for many Black Americans to hairstyles that celebrated their African heritage.
This was a way for folks in the Black community to celebrate their Blackness rather than try to assimilate or hide it.
On popular shows like Soul Train, Black Americans rocked a fro. Others opted for braids, a classic look that exploded again in the late 90s and early 2000s. R&B star Alicia Keys made them her aesthetic, and in recent years, Beyoncé would popularize lemonade braids, a new spin on the classic cornrow style of braids named after the singer's 2016 album Lemonade. But now a new report is raising concerns about popular synthetic hair used in braided styles.
Now, this consumer report is coming out and saying that there are carcinogens within the braiding hair, right? Which is the antithesis of what many Black women are trying to do in the promotion of their hair health. It has the ability to impact the natural hair movement and the hair industry quite a bit.
Dr. Adena Llanos is an associate professor of epidemiology and co-leader of the Cancer Population Science program at Columbia University. Dr. Llanos, thank you so much for joining us. The Consumer Reports investigation found dangerous levels of these chemicals in some of the most popular synthetic braiding hair brands. What do we know about the risks, the health risks of exposure to these toxins?
Yeah, so the recent test by Consumer Reports revealed that these synthetic braiding hair products can contain a variety of toxic chemicals, including carcinogens, benzene, and methylene chloride, as well as heavy metals like lead and cadmium. And so this is a concern for consumers who use these products regularly and keep them on their hair long term.
Certainly, many consumer products have trace levels of toxic chemicals that you wouldn't want in big amounts. But the notion that you have the braids on your head for a very long time, does that have an impact on the risks that may be associated with using these products long term?
Yeah, absolutely. People that use these synthetic hair braiding products keep braids in their hair for 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. So if you think about it, these small doses of toxic chemical exposures really are long-term sort of doses, which can be associated with increased risk of many outcomes.
What should Black women be aware of when purchasing and using these types of synthetic hair?
I think the most important thing for Black women, and I think all consumers, is to be aware of the products that they're using and to be aware of the potential harms from chemicals in those products.
What is significant about the scale of the tests that have been done on hair braiding products so far, and what still needs to be done and tested on?
I have a colleague at Silent Spring, Dr. Alicia Franklin, who's actually testing these same products. We need more studies like this on these products and many other products that are widely available on the market to understand what these exposures are. And in reality, we don't have long-term studies that can tell us exactly what are the health hazards associated with using these products, or what are the health hazards associated with long-term exposures to the chemicals in these specific products.
In terms of regulation, the FDA proposed a ban on formaldehyde in hair straightening products after studies revealed that causes cancer. That ban has not yet gone into effect, but based on what we've seen the FDA do with regard to previous products, how do you think the agency is going to respond to this kind of study?
You know, it's hard to say what the FDA will do in response to this study and other studies that my colleagues and I are actively conducting, and, you know, data that we will be reporting out soon. But all I can say is I believe that the FDA should regulate synthetic braiding products, and many other consumer products that we know contain carcinogens and other toxic chemicals.
Well, and to this point, studies have consistently shown that there are fewer low-hazard products available in the personal care category for Black women than on the personal care market as a whole. So are there deeper issues that are at play here?
Yes, I would say so, and I think that's a really important point to raise. I'm aware of a variety of brands and manufacturers that are moving towards providing, cleaner, less toxic, whatever you want to call safer, and I put that in quotes. And so I think as these manufacturers recognize that consumers, including Black women, are interested in products that are less toxic to their health, I think it's up to these manufacturers to do the right thing and make better products. And in addition to the manufacturers, I think the FDA needs to regulate products more widely so that we aren't concerned about the products that are widely available in our stores.
Dr. Adena Llanos with Columbia University, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Saying if it was not for the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, Mr. President Obama would not be in the White House?
If any black person who forgets that is forgetting a very important fundamental. He couldn't even been running. His name would have not been known. He wouldn't have had a white mother in Kansas.
Measles cases in the southwest corner of Kansas. Today, Governor Laura Kelly visits Garden City, encouraging people to take steps to protect themselves, namely the vaccine.
It says the latest total of cases is at 37 in the state. Sean Logging is in Garden City on the message from Governor Kelly and also local leaders. New at 5.
With a growing tally of measles cases.
I'm here today, and I believe you're here today, for one reason and one reason only, and that is to protect the health of our children.
8 southwest Kansas counties where confirmed cases are located moving to respond.
We've been making sure that other partners and us, we are all on the same page. We've been sharing information, and they've also been proactive in sharing information.
Shruti Shabra, the Finney County Health Department director, says it's been a three-pronged approach: information, testing with drive-thrus, and monitoring. But the key part of the message is vaccinations.
The vaccine is absolutely our best, safest defense against this outbreak. Measles is an extremely contagious disease, and it spreads very rapidly.
The state's chief medical officer saying Tuesday in Garden City the state is seeing the number of cases it is because people are unvaccinated. For the MMR vaccine, the first of the 2 doses is recommended starting at 12 months.
However, with this outbreak, we are recommending an early extra dose at 6 months for babies in the 8 affected counties and their surrounding counties.
The state senator for a large portion of southwest Kansas, the doctor himself, says he's seeing the response, visiting with local health officials and clinics.
The tip of the iceberg, the governor asked us earlier what our thoughts were. We do report 37 cases, but if you talk to anyone in healthcare, there are several people sitting at home with red spots, while one person who's the sickest is coming into the emergency room.
The state says it's in communication with other health departments in Kansas to prepare for further spread. In Garden City, Sean Locking, 12 News.
Last week, KDHE issued a warning about a possible measles exposure at a Garden City hotel.
Officials say the incubation period associated with that is ending, so the all clear has been given and no new cases have been associated with it.
Thousands of public school students across Washington state are being monitored 24 hours a day on their school-issued laptops. School districts from Vancouver to the San Juans and Bellevue to Richland have hired a private company to monitor everything students write in an effort to prevent them from hurting themselves or others. The Seattle Times and the Associated Press recently published an investigative story that takes a hard look at how this technology is being used and the impacts it's having on the lives of young people, parents, and teachers. Joining me to talk about this is Seattle Times education reporter Claire Bryan. Claire, welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Now, the surveillance software that you and your colleague Sharon Loria from the Associated Press reported on is called Gaggle Safety Management, and the school district you focused on is Vancouver Public Schools in Southwest Washington. So how does this monitoring work?
Yeah, so school districts partner with a company like Gaggle, and they install this software that goes on every single student device. So that's usually a laptop. In some school districts, it might be an iPad or a Chromebook. And essentially anything the student types, whether they're at school or at home, will be monitored by an AI-powered software that is looking for words that trigger violence, possibly self-harm to a student or the school community safety. The software, once it finds something that it thinks might be harmful, it notifies the school district administrators, and from there, the principal or the school counselor can decide what to do next, what to contact the parent, to talk to the student, and go from there.
Did you uncover any privacy violations in Vancouver Public Schools?
Yes. So when I filed records requests for information about what type of content triggers this software to notify the school district, what got shared with me was not password protected. It was not encrypted. It also didn't redact the student names, which is a violation of federal student privacy law. And after we discovered this, they have changed their policy so that after 72 hours, that link gets locked down by a password login portal that the school districts have to type in. But they feel like within those 72 hours, those links need to not be under a portal, because sometimes school administrators are accessing this late at night, in the middle of the night, on their phone. And if it's really, a case of a student harming themselves or taking their life, they want school administrators to be able to respond as quick as possible.
When you and your colleague Sharon from the AP saw all these messages from students, what surprised you the most?
What we saw in thousands and thousands of documents was that kids are really disclosing a lot of private information. So they're talking about their breakup or their relationship with their peers, or they're emailing their teacher saying, hey, my father at home is being abusive. And they're just using that laptop as a place to write and think and reflect. And it is really personal, and it's not just their schoolwork.
Are there any examples of this type of alerting actually working in Washington State?
Definitely. I spoke with someone who used to be the superintendent at Highline Public Schools. Highline Public Schools actually no longer uses Gaggle, but they did for quite a few years. And she shared with me that there was a student who she believes was being human trafficked, and the student was pretty shy, but she was actually aware that officials were watching her computer, and so she used that computer to type things and share what was going on in her situation, and actually was able to get herself resources from what she shared.
Well, the question that many parents hearing this might have now is, how can they find out if their child is being watched online by a company like Gaggle?
So all of those forms that you sign at the very beginning of the year as a parent would be the first place to look. Usually it's called a responsible use form, and it will usually have a small line in there that says that the school district's allowed to monitor the device. It's not usually in very clear or bold language, so you might, as a parent, want to contact the school district directly and ask, and then you can look up some more information about that company.
All right. Well, Claire, thank you so much for coming in to talk about your reporting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Claire Bryan is an education reporter with the Seattle Times. Her story is the first of a series that's part of the Education Lab Collaborative. You can find a link to the stories at our website, knkx.org.
Why haven't you learned anything?
A middle school teacher under investigation in Elk Grove after handing out racist materials as part of a lesson they titled The History of the N-Word.
Your reporter, Madison Keevy, covering Sacramento County, was at the Elk Grove School District's board meeting with a strong reaction.
Parents with students that go here to Catherine Albiani Middle School shared their thoughts and feelings with district leadership over that racist handout. They say on that paper there's a warning that said it may be offensive to children. that parents pointed out is the very group it was intended for on this campus.
I do not love, however, is the way that individuals in this school district continue to treat Black folks.
The N-word, the images, the stereotypes covering the bill were just crazy.
There's no possible way this can be framed as an educational endeavor.
Just some of the more than a dozen speakers who, in no uncertain terms, shared their concerns, frustrations, and questions about a middle school teacher's so-called history lesson.
My first reaction is this really can't be real life. Like, we're really handing out this sort of quote-unquote assignment to teach about the use of the N-word. It makes no sense.
This is the handout an unnamed teacher at Catherine L. Albiani Middle School gave students. We've blurred the N-word and offensive stereotypes depicted on the so-called dollar bill. The racist bucks printed on a sheet titled History of the N-word and then given to students.
I was further upset by the letter we received, which contained nothing more than a feeble apology. Good Lord, okay. While I recognize that this matter is under investigation, I have to say unequivocally, the material referred to as racially offensive in the letter is without a doubt racist to its core.
A letter went out to families 24 hours ago, signed by the school's principal. In it, the district writes it does not condone the materials and is conducting a thorough investigation.
I'm exhausted. I love working for Elk Grove Unified School District. I wouldn't want to work anyplace else. But the way that I feel is that we need to be better.
Kathy Wilson works for the district and spoke to her peers about the handout. Getting support from strangers at the meeting who agreed with her words.
The incident I reported on Thursday, February 27th, about the N-books is far bigger than me. It is a reflection of the systemic challenges that Black students, family, staff, and the broader community have faced for generations.
The district says resources will be available to students, staff, and families here at the middle school.
What they give you, blood? 3 months, man. What you doing in here anyway? You ought to be home with your mama. How old are you, boy? 13. 13? Damn. Bastards must be running out of niggas to arrest.
The number of children and teenagers behind bars in the U.S. hit historic lows during the pandemic, but the disparity between Black and American Indian kids and their white peers is the widest it's been in decades. Here's NPR criminal justice reporter Meg Anderson.
Jasmine Taitingfang has seen firsthand kids get criminalized for just being kids, like a young child playing in a public park.
And someone thought that they damaged an item and the police coming and handcuffing all of the children.
She's a staff attorney at the ACLU of New Mexico. She says this sort of thing happens more often to Black boys and girls.
They're perceived to be older, to be less innocent. Girls are perceived, again, to be older and more sexualized.
Studies show children of color are treated more harshly in the justice system than their white peers. And federal data suggests that disparity is widening. In 2023, the most recent year for which data is available, Black children were nearly 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than white children. American Indian children were nearly 4 times more likely. Perry Moriarty, a professor at the University of Minnesota Law School, says that's in part because youth incarceration rates are actually far lower than they were a few decades ago.
When we reduce incarceration overall, writ large, disparities often go up.
Certain policies have helped reduce the youth detention population, like diversion programs. And juvenile justice experts say kids today also just commit fewer crimes than they used to. But Moriarty says for the kids who do get locked up,
what you would often hear is, we've now finally got the kids who need to be there.
And those kids, the ones that police, prosecutors, and judges decide need to be there, are disproportionately children of color.
The kids who remain are often the kids with more complex needs. They are kids we could reach in other ways. And the reality is we've chosen not to.
Those children are staying in detention longer, too. That's according to Nate Bayless, who heads the Juvenile Justice Strategy Group at the Annie E. Casey Foundation.
Youth are being released more slowly from detention, and Black youth are being released much more slowly from detention once they've been detained.
That can have lasting consequences.
The longer young people stay in detention, the less likely they are to, for example, enroll in school, far less likely to ever graduate, more likely to be rearrested than young people who are not detained. They're more likely to be involved in the adult system when they get older.
Bayless says juvenile justice should be about responding to mistakes young people make by steering them toward a different path. Relying on detention, he says, makes it harder to do that. Meg Anderson, NPR News.
The gay rights movement is changing everything.
The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments today in a major case focused on parental rights and public schools. At the center of the case is a dispute over curriculum in Montgomery County, Maryland, a Washington, D.C. suburb. In 2022, the county school board adopted a new language arts curriculum that included books featuring LGBTQ characters, including a picture book about a dog who gets lost at a pride parade, and others featuring transgender children. Some parents asked for their children to be opted out from the curriculum because the books conflicted with their religious beliefs. The board stopped allowing opt-outs the next year, arguing they were unmanageable and undermined their obligation to foster inclusive environments. That decision sparked protests and outrage from some parents in the community, some of whom were outside the court today.
We, on behalf of other parents sharing our faith, ask the Supreme Court to stand up for the rights of our children for us to raise our children in accordance with our faith and protect them from instruction on controversial topics that go against our deeply held religious beliefs.
The justice's decision could have major consequences for public schools nationwide. To explore today's arguments, I'm joined now by NewsHour Supreme Court analyst Marcia Coyle. Great to see you, Marcia.
Good to see you, Amna.
So before we jump into the details, just big picture, what stood out to you from the arguments today?
Justice Kavanaugh made a comment. He said, with religion cases, the court generally looks for a win-win, meaning both sides come away with something. No one is a big loser. But my sense was after today's arguments, there's no way yet that they found a win-win. They're looking for a rule, a line to draw, so that, as Justice Kagan says, you don't suddenly have opt-outs for everything in public schools, or as the parents, as the school board's attorney was asked, why do you want to die on this hill of no opt-outs? So the court is struggling here, and I think it's going to take them a lot of discussion.
Unclear where that line is
yes,
right
exactly.
now. Well, there was some division on display among the justices, as you said. I just want to play a part of what Justice Alito and Justice Jackson had to say on this today.
The book has a clear message. And a lot of people think it's a good message, and maybe it is a good message, but it's a message that a lot of people who hold on to traditional religious beliefs don't agree with.
I guess I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You don't have to send your kid to that school. You can put them in another situation. You can homeschool them. How is it a burden on the parent if they have the option to send their kids elsewhere?
Marcia, what do those arguments reveal to you about how they're thinking about this, and do you get a sense of which way they're leaning?
My sense was, and I hate to predict on arguments at all, but my sense was there may be more sentiment for the parents here than for the school board. Justice Alito's comments, he was most skeptical of the school board and the books and what the books convey, especially to pre-K students and kindergarten students. Whereas Justice Jackson, was looking at the law here. Courts have said that exposure of ideas that some may object to because of their religious beliefs, that does not violate the free exercise clause in the First Amendment. So the court spent most of the time, well over an hour, discussing, is this exposure through these books, or is it a burden? Is it coercion? So we're going back and forth with many hypotheticals about, gay teachers, the books themselves showing a wedding of two men, and whether they're just exposing these kids to these ideas. The school board claims that these books are really designed to encourage civility and respect for others.
And in those hypotheticals, sort of leads me to my next question, which if the court does rule in the parents' favor, what are we talking about in terms of the impact this could have on public schools nationwide?
Well, if they rule in favor of the parents, certainly you're going to see more opt-outs in situations like this. Now, opt-outs are fairly common in high schools for certain reasons. You see them most often in health classes involving sex education, obviously. But as Justice Kagan pointed out, you might also see opt-outs requested for the teaching of evolution in biology and other reasons. But still, you may see more opt-outs on the basis of religious beliefs. For the school boards, too, though, it could be, if they lose, it could be an administrative nightmare. They say these books are part of the English language curriculum. It's not a single unit like sex education in a health class. So having kids moving in or out, trying to arrange when that happens, alternative education plans could really create problems for schools. And Justice Jackson also pointed out that if the parents win, she worries that local control of education is eroded, and you're going to find judges then deciding what kind of books can be used, what kind of books burden religion. And she didn't obviously think that was the right role for judges.
Marcia, it's worth pointing out the court is hearing another case related to religion and schools next week. You have the 6-3 conservative majority that has backed religious rights arguments in the past. When you take a step back, what role is the Roberts Court playing when it comes to religious rights debates in this country?
Amna, I think that this is going to be one of the legacies of the Roberts Court since the Chief Justice joined in 2005. You have 3 religion cases this term. They are in very different contexts. But the Roberts Court has shown a trend of pushing for greater government accommodation of religion. And they've done that by elevating the free exercise clause over that other very important clause, the Establishment Clause, and that clause's concerns about government entanglement with religion. And I think that's something we'll see a little more dramatically next week when they take up the religious charter school case.
All right. We'll be waiting and watching. That is NewsHour's Supreme Court analyst, Marcia Coyle. Marcia, thank you. It's always great to have you here.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So instead of the population as a whole looking at racism, white supremacy as a system that necessitates ongoing killing of thousands and millions of people, the denial of racism is what exists, and so you deny that there is a system dynamic, a total system dynamic that necessitates killing, and instead of looking at that, they just look at, oh my goodness, here's a mass murderer who killed 169 people. Oh wow, here's Jeffrey Dahmer who killed 17 or 18 people. Or here's somebody else who killed 49 people. Or here's Timothy McVeigh who, as I said, killed 169. So those are the people that the spotlight is focused on, as it simultaneously denies that there is a total system structure of racism, white supremacy, that necessitates mass murder, continuous mass murder of non-white people.
There was a solemn ceremony this morning in Oklahoma City. It honored the 168 men, women, and children who died 30 years ago when an anti-government extremist set off a powerful bomb outside the federal building there. It's still the deadliest act of homegrown terrorism in U.S. history. In the keynote address, former President Bill Clinton reflected on the indelible mark the tragedy left on the city.
I know you still miss the people you lost, but by continuing to love them and honor them, and working to rebuild your own lives and the lives of this community, you've gone a long way to redeem the lives they were not able to live.
A single photograph captured the horror of that day. A firefighter cradling the lifeless body of a small child. It appeared on front pages and magazine covers around the country. The firefighter in that photo is Chris Fields. He's now retired after more than 31 years on the Oklahoma City Fire Department. Chris, thanks for being with us. And if the memories aren't too painful, I'd like you to take us back to that day 30 years ago. You were in the firehouse, as I understand it. You felt the concussion of the explosion, and you headed to the scene. You didn't wait for a dispatcher to send you. You guys headed out on your own. As you neared the building, what did you see and what was going through your head when you saw it?
My station was 17 blocks to the north. And as we were getting closer, I remember reporting on the radio that we were still 11 or 12 blocks away, and storefront windows were blown out, and people were kind of walking out in a daze, no injuries. And then as we approached the building, it was just like a scene from like a horror movie. All these people running towards you, running away from the building, and a lot of glass injuries, flying debris injuries, and things like that.
And how was it that you were carrying Bailey, the one-year-old girl you're carrying in the photograph? How did that happen?
We had been assigned to go to the south side of the building to catch up with some other crews and start doing some search and rescue operations. And a police officer said he had a critical infant. And I just put my arms out and said, here, I'll take her. And the first thing I did was check her for any signs of life. I cleared some concrete dust out of her throat. She had some other injuries, but I didn't find any signs of life. And I went across the street to an ambulance, and I told the paramedic, I have a critical infant. And I'm waiting for him to get a blanket out of the ambulance to put her on the ground because the ambulance was full. And, the next day, seeing the photo, finding out that's when the photo was taken, when I was standing there waiting for the paramedic to get a blanket.
Looking at that photo, the way you're cradling her, the way you're looking at her, it's like you're carrying your own child. Do you remember what was going through your head at the time?
Yes, sir. Once I saw the photo, I knew exactly where I was standing and what I was doing and thinking. My oldest son, who's 32 now, he was 2 at the time, so I knew they were close in age, and most people know Bailey had turned 1-year-old the day before on April 18th. I was just thinking that, somebody's world is going to be turned upside down today. I met the mother like a couple of days afterwards. A local reporter from here kind of set it up, and at first I didn't want to. I didn't know what I would say, what I would do, what their reaction was going to be. Then the reporter said, well, the mother wants to meet you and the police officer. And that changed everything because I said, well, if that's what she wants, then that's what we're going to do. And we've maintained that relationship for 30 years as friends.
What did she say to you? Do you remember?
I do. It's still an emotional meeting to think about. Here was this 20-year-old single mother, just lost her only child, comforting what are supposed to be these big, tough first responders. And she just thanked us. She thanked us that her baby was out, and she knew the fate of her daughter. She knew there were a lot of other families still waiting, and as you can tell, it's still emotional for me. And she said that she could tell by the way we were handling Bailey that we were fathers, and she appreciated the way we handled her.
You were not only a player in this horrific event, but you ended up by happenstance in the photograph that came to symbolize it. How did those two things affect you?
I struggled for a while with the being singled out. It's not something we look to do or strive to do or want to do in the fire service, but the support I had from my brothers and sisters in the fire department was overwhelming. I struggled with a lot of the stuff about, meeting Bailey's mother and knowing that, I'm the last one that she knows that held her child, and struggled with, like I say, being singled out. A retired fire chief really helped me. He said, what he sees when he sees that photo is the firefighter is not Chris Fields. It's just an image of all the first responders that responded that day. And he doesn't see Bailey Allman. He sees her representing all the innocence that was lost that day.
You talked about the support you got from your brothers and sisters in the fire department. You're sort of paying it forward now, aren't you? You're working with first responders now. Tell us about that work.
Years after the bombing, through the bombing experience and other things through my career, things kind of spiraled out of control in my life, my personal life, diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, all the I checked all the boxes, and it was surely showing in my personal life. But through people reaching out to help me, and me finally realizing I wasn't alone, I wasn't the only one feeling that way, I reached out, got the help I needed. And I feel like that's what my calling is now, is to let other first responders know, whether they're early in their career, coming from retirement, how many years they've got, that all these feelings and emotions they have after some of the traumatic things we see and do over a career, they're perfectly normal, and that they're not alone. Because you do, even though there's thousands of firefighters across the country, you feel like you're the only one feeling what you're feeling.
Chris Fields, thanks so much for sharing your memories with us of that difficult day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Black people should stay away from each other except when they have a constructive agenda. That's a part of the black code, you might say, or the compensatory code covering that. Why? Because we're full of poison, that's why. Put there by the white supremacists. We're born bathed in poison. And then they turn us loose on each other. And the first thing we start doing is messing over each other. We should stay away from each other. We're always talking about we got to get together.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
New details tonight in an ongoing investigation. A Milwaukee woman now faces charges in a suspicious fatal fire earlier this month, but she has not been charged in connection to the death. Bria Jones is in the newsroom for us with what prosecutors say led to the tragedy.
Ted, investigators say 28-year-old Rashamba Claybrooks started a fire in her boyfriend's apartment. The fire spread throughout the building and forced evacuations. Hours later, a man was found unconscious and he later died. I talked to his sister tonight.
Help us understand. Give us a sense of peace so that we can begin to heal. What happened to my brother?
Deborah Nash wants answers and, more than anything, for justice to be served for her brother, 71-year-old Sam Nash.
He was everything. Sam was a former military veteran. So his age was 71, but it was almost like he was aging backwards because every day he was up.
Investigators say Nash died on April 8th following an apartment fire at this now boarded up building on 30th and Capitol. Prosecutors say 28-year-old Rashamba Claybrooks started the fire in her boyfriend's apartment after they spent the day arguing, and he asked her to move out.
I hope that my brother's picture is constantly in her mind when she closes her eyes, when she thinks, when she talks. He should not have been a victim of your maliciousness.
Claybrooks is now facing multiple charges, including arson and bell-jumping domestic abuse assessments.
Nothing says anything about my brother's death. I lost my brother. None of those charges say that. Look, my brother's gone.
So what charge would you like to see added?
Homicide, murder.
Nash says she also wants accountability from Milwaukee Fire.
And walked over to a fireman and said, my brother is up there. I was just on the phone with him and now I'm not getting an answer. He said maybe this building is listed as all clear.
She says her nephew found Nash, his father, unconscious almost 2 hours later.
How did our brother, out of all the tenants being rescued from this building, how did my brother get missed?
We did reach out to Milwaukee Fire for comment, but we have yet to hear back. As for Claybrooks, prosecutors say this was not her first time damaging the property. We also reached out to the district attorney's office about additional charges in the case. We were told the investigation is ongoing. Mary?
Bria, thank you.
We don't need no water. 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 We don't need no water.
I just want to go for a swim, that's all.
We don't need no water.
I ain't went for a swim since I was a little kid.
We don't need no water.
You probably just be throwing it all willy-nilly, just pouring it on your shoes for no reason. I need water, man.
Milwaukee
for late in May.
And today, another community group plans to have a town hall on NPS's lead exposure crisis. The Coalition on Lead Emergency plans to host a town hall from 3 to 4:30 at the Hepatha Church near 18th and Locust. The group mentions it's a way for parents to know what the plan is to fix the lead issues in schools and to ask questions if they feel their child was exposed. Organizers also plan to provide free lead-safe kits and lead testing. Since MPS has had to close several schools with high lead levels, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had to deny a request from the Milwaukee Health Department asking for help with the lead after the CDC's lead exposure program was eliminated earlier this month. And we did get a progress report on the lead removal efforts at the 3 schools still closed. The update came during a board meeting last week. We learned Fernwood Montessori could tentatively report as soon as Wednesday. Work began on La Follette School last week. That's expected to last 4 to 5 weeks. And renovation and painting at Starm's Early Childhood Center is about 75% complete.
It's a dog, it's a dog, it's a dog. It's a doggy dog world. Just cool. It's a doggy dog. What you gonna do? You got the key. Yeah. It's a dog. It's your world. It's a dog. It's a doggy dog. What you wanna be? See, it's a doggy dog. What you see? Mama, that's what she is. Mama, it's a dog. It's a doggy dog. It's a dog. It's a doggy dog world. It's a doggy dog
Milwaukee
For late in May.
Right, that lawsuit, Derek, focused on the canine handler unable to control the canine, but also on the fact that mall security here didn't tell police about the dog bite. When Wauwatosa police responded to Mayfair Mall March 28th for reports of a fight,
The party who was attacked left.
the security guard said the group of people fighting was already gone.
Did it get physical?
Yeah, she had a scratch. One officer who I was with, 215, he has like the picture of like her like having a scratch on her right now.
But what the guard, who works for Andy Frain Services, failed to mention, a security canine bit 19-year-old Amira Walls, latching onto her ankle, ignoring commands to let her go. Videos of the incident now viral, one showing the dog biting Walls for at least 45 seconds. The canine handler, Malcolm Ingram, seen struggling to regain control. Walls the next day, bringing the bite to the attention of Wauwatosa police.
In the midst of me trying to protect myself, the dog just attacked my leg. And I fell to the ground. He tried to take the dog off of me, started hitting the dog in the face. So he was talking to the dog like, why would you do that?
Walls shared these photos of her injuries. The officer acknowledges potential serious medical complications for Walls.
We are required to fill out a full report as to what happened. I'm going to have to go to the mall, get all of their information and the dog's information as far as like rabies, stuff like that, because they're required to quarantine the dog for 10 days.
And Emily's with us live tonight again. Emily, records we obtained suggest that 10-day quarantine never happened.
Right, a police report says that canine handler told investigators that the security company actually transferred the canine to another state. That handler also says that the security company fired him.
Black people should stay away from each other except when they have a constructive agenda. That's a part of the black code, you might say, of the compensatory code covering that. Why? Because we're full of poison, that's why. Put there by the white supremacists. We're born bathed in poison. Then they turn us loose on each other. And the first thing we do start doing is messing over each other. We should stay away from each other.
Milwaukee
For late May.
New tonight, a noise complaint led to the shooting death of a Milwaukee dentist. His neighbor is now charged with his homicide. Fox 6's Ashley Sears is in the newsroom and explains investigators say this was all over loud music.
Yeah, that's right, Kim. This all happened on Saturday at an apartment building in Brown Deer. Police say the victim confronted the woman upstairs and she shot him. Brown Deer Road, the Park Plaza apartments are tucked away in a quiet setting. Saturday night, investigators say the noise inside one unit led to a shooting. A criminal complaint explains just after 11, the man living on the first floor confronted Kiana McGowan about her loud music in the apartment above him. She told police she was doing her hair and trying on different clothes when she heard loud, aggressive banging at her door and told her neighbor she would turn the music down. She closed the door and told investigators she heard the man kicking as if he was going to break in, so she got her gun and fired one shot at the man. 41-year-old Akintunde Bowden suffered a gunshot wound to his abdomen and died on the scene. He's been identified as an esteemed dentist. Milwaukee Health Services posted a tribute to Dr. Bowden on social media, saying he worked there for more than a decade and recently became the dental director. In a news release, they say he was fiercely committed to eliminating health disparities and improving outcomes for those most in need, and he will be deeply missed, but his legacy of service, compassion, and excellence will continue to guide their work. Bowden's fiance told police he had been watching basketball at home and didn't have any previous confrontations with the upstairs neighbor. McGowan is in the Milwaukee County Jail tonight being held on a $15,000 bond. Live in the newsroom, Ashley Sears, Fox 6 News.
All right, Ash, thanks.
They shooting.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
But we start tonight with breaking news. Again, we spoke about shots fired during a soccer game. We want to get right to Mike Biermeister, who is out there now. What's the latest?
Yeah, Shannon, certainly a scary situation unfolding just outside of Jimmy Banks Stadium, where just a few hours ago, Milwaukee King and Milwaukee Riverside girls soccer were facing off for a 7 p.m. game. Take a listen to this. A parent in the stands sent us this video and tells us they heard those gunshots just after halftime in the game and just about a block west of the stadium, so right around 8 p.m. Shortly after, she tells me referees huddled together and canceled the game. Now, no one was hurt, but certainly an uneasy feeling. She tells me both the players and fans were both understandably upset by this whole situation. Now, we have reached out to both Milwaukee Police as well as MPS, but we have not heard back yet. We'll continue to keep you updated as we learn more information. We're live near 44th and Fairmount. Mike Biermeister, TMJ4 News.
He wouldn't have had a white mother in Kansas.
The Kansas City Police Department created an independent missing persons unit in 2023. 2 years later, the department reports progress, but as Brandon Azim reports, the numbers mask impatience and frustration among some black families.
Hello there. How you doing? Oh, well.
In a Lee Summit neighborhood near Interstate 50, members of the Rawls family, who are African American, gathered to meet me for one of the most difficult conversations they've had in a while. They're wondering aloud, where has my brother, my uncle, my son gone? Brandon Rawls was 16 years old in November of 2001 when he was reported missing. A police report says that he was last seen on Longview Road and left on his own accord. But the teen 66-year-old father, Willard Rawls Jr., still remembers the last time he talked with his son.
I kept asking him what's wrong. He would not tell me. But he kept looking at his pager like he needed to be somewhere. I kept holding him hostage, keep him still. He wanted to go. And that's the last time. Barry, last time I talked to him.
Since his son's disappearance, Rawls says he would periodically check in with the Kansas City Police Department. But the last conversation he had with law enforcement was frustrating.
There's one cop, detective, homicide, I reached out to any more information on Brandon. We will not know anything till we find bones. What are you telling me, man? I was so frustrated, I hung up on him.
The grieving father continues to hang flyers and post on social media in search of his son, but he feels that KCPD has given up. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, over almost 50 years, there are 69 missing persons cases in Kansas City still classified as unresolved. Sergeant Danny Thomas is the supervisor of the Missing Persons Unit. He says every case is important, but there are limitations to the lengths law enforcement can go.
I think you have to resign yourself to the fact that you've done everything that you know you're supposed to do with each case.
He says since the unit became its own entity 2 years ago, their success rate has improved dramatically. KCPD records reveal that 99% of missing persons reports in 2024 have been resolved.
I think we're successful, and most of the time, as you can see by the numbers, that adds to somebody being reunited with their loved ones.
Thomas attributes that success to a few things. First, as part of the standalone missing persons unit, detectives are able to focus exclusively on those cases. Previously, as part of the homicide unit, they were juggling missing persons cases with murders and other cold cases. He also credits the success to digital networking and social media, tools they haven't used effectively in the past. Thomas acknowledges they need to do better on cases that drag on for decades, to occasionally reach out to families with or without case-altering updates.
If we don't have any information, we typically don't. Communication needs to improve in both ways. You know, we do make sure we return our phone calls too. I'm sure we're not always 100% great at that. I'm sure there's times when we forget and probably need to make sure we follow up on those things.
Good afternoon.
The ad hoc group against crime takes a community approach to solving crimes and finding missing individuals. Damon Daniels has been the group's CEO for 10 years. He understands why KCPD can only call so many times. But until there is conclusive evidence to close a case, law enforcement needs to keep the broader community and the families up to date on their investigations.
They definitely have to do better at communicating to the public, especially when there's an active investigation or an open case, even if it's gone cold.
He says while communicating between families and police is key to solving cases, there also must be communication in the household. He says parents of young kids in particular need to nurture that communication. A disproportionate number of those who go missing are juveniles. About 78% of those missing persons cases in 2024 were juveniles, according to KCPD. Daniel says prevention must start in the home.
Young people need to be a lot more communicative with adults as well. And so those are the things that sort of bother me, that kind of keeps me up at night.
Back in the living room of Willard Rawls, his 3 adult children are drinking beer and sharing stories of Brandon, what he liked to do, and what kind of person he was. Older brother Will Ross III says Brandon gained confidence as a fan of televised wrestling.
He was the smallest dude around, but he talked like he was 7 foot 380.
The good memories of Brandon are what keeps his father Willard motivated to keep up his search.
What kind of parent will I be if I give up hope? But KCPD has not given me hope.
Rawls wants KCPD to show more interest and compassion when dealing with older missing person cases to help him and other grieving families sustain that hope. For KCUR 89.3, I'm Brandon Azim.
That if you want ultimate expression of white supremacy and the white supremacist mentality, and you want to put it in the form of one person that I would name, and that's something I very seldom do, it would be Jeffrey Dahmer. He's the ultimate expression of white supremacy. Everything that he was doing, working in a chocolate factory, the whole 9 yards, and storing black male bodies in canisters of lye and alcohol and whatnot, got them in the refrigerator, and cannibalism and all of that, and calm, very methodical, even when questioned by the law enforcement officers, very calm. Hannibal Lecter.
Frozen femurs in the freezer. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
Now to the legal landscape. Our legal analyst, attorney Dan Adams, joins us every Monday breaking down the biggest cases happening across Wisconsin and the country. Good morning, Dan. We're going to talk about that first date murder case, which now heads to trial next month. What are the attorneys doing in the lead up to Maxwell Anderson's trial?
Right. Good morning. Yeah, there was the final pretrial last Friday. That's the usual last checking in between the defense and the prosecution with the judge that's going to hear the case and to iron out any unresolved issues that the judge needs to be made aware of. Here it appears that it was a very short hearing. They have already banged out any issues that they may have had in the offing. So it looks like they're going to trial in late May. One thing that could issue some wrangling in the next couple of weeks, however, is the ability for the defense to file a notice of alibi. We know what alibi is, of course. That's where you're saying you were somewhere else when the crime was committed. There was some inclination of this in December when the defense said that they had some digital records that may create an alibi. Now, they, again, didn't have to file that until 30 days before trial. So sometime this week or early next week, they could file a notice of alibi. At this point, the prosecution is getting together all of their witnesses, scheduling them. Again, we're looking at 40, 50 witnesses, perhaps from the prosecution's end. That's a major organizational challenge that they're going to be undertaking over the next 5 weeks. The defense, of course, is doing their organization, reviewing and re-reviewing the discovery to put together their case and to prepare whether they're going to put on any witnesses after the state's case, including, importantly, the defendant Maxwell Anderson himself. So a lot of moving parts over the next 5 weeks for these parties to put together. But this is going to be the biggest trial probably in Wisconsin this year. So we're going to be looking at this throughout the summer.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks as that trial begins in May. Dan, thank you so much for your perspective. We'll see you next Monday for more of the legal landscape.
Milwaukee for late May. Counter-racist legal landscape. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy, certainly the local system of white supremacy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Today's date, Saturday, April 26, 2025. So I have been told. This is our weekly compensatory call-in. Dial in if you have observations, thoughts, questions, counter-racist suggestions. The number 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Before we get to the news segments, observations, all that good stuff, I will say I do invest a lot of time and energy in gathering news reports each week. Sometimes listeners share and find different things from their region that I appreciate as well. But I always think that's really important. We've had a number of listeners over the years who've said, man, sometimes I don't get to check the news or what have you for the week because I'll be so busy. And the compensatory call-in, that will be kind of how I at least find out a few things of what happened over the past 7 days in terms of news and information. So I take that seriously. Dr. Welsing, Mr. Fuller, Dick Gregory, Dr. Cambon, so many of the people that we esteem, they really took it serious in terms of paying attention to news and information worldwide, white supremacy, racism, what is happening on this here planet, and getting information that will help me solve this problem. That's what motivates those segments. Now, today specifically, wow. Gus T. focused, Milwaukee, late May, Sade C. Robinson murder trial. Let us get to it. And really, that is, same thing I told her mother, Miss Scarborough, Why is this so important that you got to travel all these thousands of miles and go to lame Milwaukee for all this time? Fuller said the essence of white supremacy racism, Milwaukee, Jeff Dahmer. Well, this is Dahmer one more time. One more time. That's why, amongst many other things. But man, since I have been paying attention, and Miss Scarborough has been so helpful. She sends me so many reports. She sent me some of the information that you just heard. She has been so helpful. But man, and even Gus T has been on his job. Like, for one of those reports, she sent it to me, and I said, hey, wait a minute now, Miss Scarborough. Now I'm on my grind. I already had that one. Now wait a minute now. I do check the news. Thank you. I didn't say all that, but I did already. I was beating her to the punch, like we get a little bit closer, so I have to check the news a little bit more frequently for Milwaukee, for the weather and everything else. I'm going to tell you, for this week alone, I was already petrified about going. What I said, Milwaukee, what that mean? It means chop you up. Dahmer land. I said that weeks ago. This week specifically, if someone said, Gus T, you old chump, you old fraidy cat, what you mean you scared about going to, Milwaukee? I could see maybe if Jay Dahmer was still out on the loose and he was chomping on it, snacking on black people and they hadn't caught it, maybe if Max Anderson was still out on the loose and he was hacking up folks and they were finding body parts all over the city, they did just pull a black female. Or now I can't say black female, I would have played it, but they did just pull a body out the river out there as well. But, whatever. They got Maxwell Anderson in custody. That's the fella going to trial next month. Why for, Gus T, are you afraid about going to Milwaukee specifically? What did I hear that's happening in Milwaukee this week, just the last 7 days? The fire victim speaks out. 71-year-old Sam Nash dies in a fire where they have a domestic dispute between a black female and a black male, where the black female decides, I'll fix your wagon, metaphor. You don't ask me to leave because we argue all the time. I'm going to set the place on fire. And inadvertently, 71-year-old Sam Nash, who was not the boyfriend, burns up and dies. Black, and I'm proud. So that happened in Milwaukee. Then the Milwaukee, this has been ongoing, where they had to shut the schools down and they had to have white people resign because they got this lead emergency in the schools. Where have I heard that before? Flint and Newark and Benton Harbor and just outside Chicago, wherever the niggers live, Congo, whatever that is, don't drink the water. Even when you go to the schools, MPS is Milwaukee Public Schools. So don't drink the water. That alone, that sounds California-ish to me. Like when you go somewhere and they say off the rip, ooh, lead problem. Whoa, isn't that poisonous? Isn't that what they say about Freddie Gray and all that? Like, wait a minute, I don't want to go to no Flint. I hadn't heard nobody say, I can't wait to get to Flint, Michigan. Like, whoo, I need to get up there and hang out for at least a summer. Order me a whole lot of Evian while I'm there. But I ain't heard nobody say that. Nobody, ever. Any of you all, you took a vacation to go to Flint? We got listeners, investors who live in Michigan. Y'all spend free time in Flint? These are the school, mind you. I mean, you got Precious. Your brain computer is developing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't use the water fountain at the school. Incidentally, the Milwaukee Film Festival just kicked off. I said I was bummed it kicked off so early and it goes into May. If it had been like a week or two later, I could have went to the Milwaukee Film Festival and the Seattle International Film Festival, but the timing was just a hair off. But one of the films that I would have went to see if I had been in Milwaukee early, Something in the Water. What is that about? How black people specifically in Milwaukee can't drink the water. You mean I gotta be looking out on the corner? Whoa, 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 whoa. Jeff Dahmer might be out there snacking on black people and can't go. And don't drink the water. We're not done. So what else was just this week in Milwaukee? So they're still adjudicating. Remember when I told you, Milwaukee, like everywhere else, they sick the dogs on the niggers in Milwaukee. So when you get to Milwaukee, don't go to the mall because they will sick the dogs on you just like they did. Little Amira Walls, she's 19. Same age as Sade Robinson. I said that before. Same age as Sade Robinson. Sick the dogs on you out in public, and then security say, they terminated me from my job. Really? Because you had the dog chomp on the black person? Dang, I didn't know they fired you. You can't let the canine chomp on the black patrons at the mall. Everybody, I guess you'll note that if you are security, you should maybe control your hound. So this is ongoing in lawsuit. Thought maybe I can go talk to Miss Walls and her mother while I'm in Milwaukee. We can't do it at the mall, though. They'll sick all of us. What else was in Milwaukee just this week? Brown deer homicide. Oh, my God. I could have fallen out in the floor. We don't even have black doctors. Dr. Akintunde Bowden, privileged black male dentist, probably still a looter and raper of white women, had the audacity to go downstairs and knock on his black sister's door and say, excuse me, is it possible you could turn down the Dougie Fresh? And she shot and killed him. That's two different reports. Man. Woo! Negro conflict fatalities in Milwaukee. All I can say, man, maybe don't go knock on someone's door about, no, even I had forgotten about Renisha McBride. Now, she went to knock for help. But it's so many different situations where a black person going and knocking on someone's door after 10 p.m. results in death. Remember, the black parent went to knock on the door because the white woman had been terrorizing her son, and she shot her through the door. Sometimes you don't even get to knock on the door. They shoot you through the door. Like, man, with the amount of people that are on drugs, might be hallucinating, alcohol, whatever else, domestic abuse, plus just the amount of people that are racist, and or, I just said both of these were all black pride Negro conflict. With the amount of anti-blackness that we have, you might be taking your life into your hands going and knocking on someone's door. Now, they say privileged black male Akintunde Bowden that allegedly he might have knocked twice, he might have kicked on the door. You no good hussy, turn that music down, and I don't want to hear no Dougie bit. Maybe that's what they say, he kicked the door. Maybe. I don't think none of that warrants shooting and killing someone. I mean, wow. That is, matter of fact, the way it was explained in terms of the rationale of why this black dentist had to be shot and killed over a noise dispute was, I thought he was going to kick the door down. That's what Ted Wafer said about Renisha McBride in 2013. I thought she was going to huff and puff and just blow the house down. So I had to get my shotgun and blow her brains out all over the yard. Okay. I thought you could just keep the door closed and call the police. Tell them to shoot. Even announce, I've got a gun. Beat it, Leroy. That might have worked too. Nah, I got to shoot and kill him. Okay. Same thing I said with Austin Metcalf. That's Act 1. Let's see what the rest of this looks like. Black and I'm proud in Milwaukee, but that was for sure one I wanted to throw up for so many reasons. I guess the greater lesson again, you are taking your life, even apparently if you go and ask for help. Remember Jonathan Farrell in North Carolina? Oh, even if you're going and asking for help, you might be taking your life into your hands, knocking on someone's door after 10 p.m. Especially in Milwaukee. In fact, in Milwaukee, they might open the door and eat you. No. Or sick the dogs on you. Arr. Now, Milwaukee, just this week, one Miss Scarborough sent me I did not have. She said, oh my goodness, Gus T. isn't... Now, this is the second time she said this. I told you last time she said, isn't Milwaukee lame? Oh my God, this is the worst. She lives there. This is the worst place, isn't it, Gus? Now, last time she said this, I had just told y'all, Milwaukee mean chop you up, maybe chomp you up too. But I didn't say that. When she said it the last time, I said, oof. I'm in Seattle. We got Ted Bundy. We got the Green River Killer. And, I could go on like, hey, total system. They terrorize a lot of black people. This time around, I had already seen a lot of what I just told you for this week. Then she sent me that report at the soccer game, not the football game. I expect, Leroy and everybody to have pepper spray and firearms and pistols and razors. That's, standard operating procedure. Matter of fact, retired firefighter probably had a few folks in the headlock, get the Opalaka 3 out there. What you mean we were offsides? Get over it. That's been standard operating procedure for decades at the football games. I mean, tackle football. This was at a soccer game in Milwaukee. Miss Scarborough's family was at the soccer game in Milwaukee. And pew, 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 they shooting. We got to cancel the game. You can't drink the water or sit safely at the soccer games at Milwaukee Public Schools. This time around, I said, sure enough, Milwaukee is the scariest place in the world. And then we got the update on Sade Robinson's case. They didn't have audio. I told you they pulled a body out of the water in Wisconsin, right there close to Wisconsin this week. They've been trying to get a task force, just like in Kansas. That was the only interrupter, and that was why, because it's the same thing. I played it right with Sade Robinson for a reason. They've been trying to get a task force for missing and murdered black females, specifically in Wisconsin, for 3 years. White people don't care. They just pulled the body out of the water this week, have to investigate. Now, was this another black female? Because it's been quite a few missing and murdered black females. Miss Robinson has sent me a lot of reports about that. They just had a missing 16-year-old black female just this week. Posted about that as well. They just didn't have video, or I would have included that also. But I mean, it's been rampant. All of that. That's just 7 days, in addition to everything else in Milwaukee. And that's not even a whole state of Wisconsin, which is lame anyway. Rob, formerly of Wisconsin, they lock up all those black people and everything. That's all throughout Madison and La Crosse. That's all over. Green Bay, where they had the lame draft, do all their black misandry and hate on Deion Sanders' son this whole weekend, right? Right in Wisconsin. No, I'm just talking about just Milwaukee. I will summon my counter-racist courage. I will ask you all to pray, and hopefully won't have to stay too long, even though I have the prosecution witness list. It has 247 witnesses. Now, they said they're going to call approximately 40 of them. Even 40 witnesses, if you got high-powered white attorneys, there is no way that amounts to 2 weeks. I cannot see that at all. If you got a high-powered, man, I at least got to ask some questions about your credentials and who written it. They got evidence spread. They found body parts in 2 different states. How do you even know that's her remains? They got lots of serial killers, right? That could have been somebody else. I would go to town on all of that. Identification, all of that. He has good, high-powered attorneys. It's no way, even if they call 40 on the dot, it's no way I can see that being 2 weeks, even just to get through the 40 prosecution witnesses. The defense got to call witnesses too, right? I'm not putting Maxwell Anderson on the stand, but defense got to at least call some other witnesses. Character witnesses or whatever. I don't know who those would be because he has such a lengthy criminal record. Again, I can't say enough. I intend to be there every day, cover the trial, write podcasts so folks can get lots of information, speak with Miss Scarborough so that, she can share as much as possible about what she's experienced through this past year and all the rest of it. But, man, to have just a case doesn't necessarily have to be related to racism, white supremacy. The Flint water case, even though I don't know what that would be that doesn't relate to racism, because the Flint water case certainly does racism, chemical and biological warfare in some circles. But pick a case, court case, that you can follow. And when I say follow, where you can get the court records, you can go to court, even if you can't go to court every day, where you can go to some of the trials, or you could watch on TV, sometimes they'll be streaming or what have you, where you can actually follow. Take notes, review the evidence for yourself, see what they say about it in the press, all of that. Follow it kind of from beginning to end. Even request some of the court documents. I have the search warrant for the Sade Robinson case. The criminal complaint, I already said, the prosecution witness list, the defense witness list. Like, get as much of the material as you are interested to gather, but you can really use that as a counter-racist learning project, research project, if you have attempted offspring, and that's like life skills too, in terms of how to navigate government websites, to go online to get court documents or what have you, which might be helpful for you later on in life. Any sort of court records, how to go and find folks who have engaged in criminal activity, how to go and find those records and what have you, how to request those records. Like, all of that can be really valuable skills in learning, doing serious things. That's a lot more than just, we'll read about, George Washington or some goofiness from 300 years ago. Not that that's unimportant, but I mean, hey, happening right now, we can learn about racism, white supremacy right now and do live time stuff. Hey, we can go watch a court case. Like, how about that? Like, we can learn about that whole process. And in fact, Fuller said that because he said one of the big things that you see and you're watching a court procedure, even if it's not a murder trial, questions. Even that, like, what did you think were some of the best questions that they asked? If you go, you're able to take your offspring and see, what questions that they have. Oh, that was a good one. How do you, matter of fact, that right there, court can be a tremendous environment to study. How do you neutralize someone who is lying? Mark Furman, see, F. Lee Bailey, the great. How do you neutralize someone who is lying? Because that's going to be one of our main activities, neutralizing lying white people. court might be a great environment to study that. And one of the things you get, asking quality questions. Make it self-evident. Hey, something I don't think this fella's being truthful. Furman and said nigger a few times. Like, asking questions. So I can't say that enough. I'm saying this, I have never covered a murder trial. I have never covered a jaywalking trial, following too close trial, civil, trial. None of the, I didn't even watch the O.J. Simpson trial. So it will certainly be a first for me. Like I said, hopefully, do things correctly, be able to cover 2 murder trials, a state murder trial and then a federal, much less a death penalty trial. And said it'd be that serious, but for sure. But I'm super excited, super looking forward and looking to cover, report daily and just be on the grind business. And given what you've heard about Milwaukee and all of those reports, I thought California was a business trip. If anything can be more serious than a business trip, military mission, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to think about this. Total military exercise in Milwaukee. I am not doing nothing. I'm not going to no soccer games. I'm not going to no tennis matches. I'm not going to no flag football, volleyball, nothing. I'm not going to the park. I'm going to court, going to my hotel room. I'm going to the Jeffrey Dahmer Museum, going to my hotel room. I'm going to the Black Holocaust Museum, going to my hotel room. Going to the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, going to my hotel room. That is it. A, B, and back. A, B, and back. Nothing else. No lollygagging. No hanging out. Oh, do you want to go something? No. There's nothing to see. We are in super danger. Can't even drink the water. No, I can't go that far because I have to go make sure I have my bottled water stacked up at my room. So no, I can't even. No, I'm not going sightseeing. I don't want to go to the club. I don't want to go to the bar. I'm definitely not going to the mall. Court, hotel. Court, hotel. And pray I can get back on the plane. Throw my shoes in the trash at the airport. Most dangerous place ever. Let's see. Things not related to Milwaukee. I guess hopefully it will be constructive going to Milwaukee. Even I was thinking to talk to some of these folks to maybe see if I could talk to Dr. Akintunde Bowden's family. See, because they said he was working against health disparities in dentistry. That's what we need. Gone. Mess up. And they said his alleged killer, black female, she was trying on clothes. I know it was not for Easter Sunday. Anyway, praying for safety in Milwaukee. Don't talk to anyone about noise complaints. Just call the police, property manager, whatever. Let's see. The reports other than Milwaukee that we heard, they talked about the health concerns for aging males. Non-Clemson dad had addressed that previously and talked about that as a serious health concern. The system of white supremacy, that is one of the main consequences of this system. All of the toxicity and poor quality relationships where you have lots of people who don't have quality relationships and are super isolated, and or we get together and it's conflict. That is, a massive part of what this system is all about. So, man, I mean, even people that are younger than that, it doesn't have to be all the way up to 75, but certainly, and they were talking about in Maine, so there have to be lots of people that are classified as white, even in this system where they have all of this power and wealth and resources. Even then, you have tons of elderly white folks. They just get stuck in the house or elderly care facilities and whatever. Fend for yourself and, hope whatever the best for you. Like, white people don't care about children, don't care about elderly. What they care about is white supremacy racism. Let's see. The autism comments, we've spoken about that before, even though it seemed like they had a lot of individuals who may be classified as white. That was an auditory report, audio report, talking about, they were offended because they have autism and still live great functional lives and all the rest of it. Again, RFK suspected racist. I have no idea if the vaccines are causing autism. I know Dr. Welsing, many others have noted there has been a tremendous increase in the number of cases of autism. Is that because there's better testing? Is that because there's a problem? What exactly is the nature of the problem? What should be done about all of this? All super valid questions. I am not a doctor, but I do include medical apartheid in that report, or to preface that report, for a number of reasons. I used that segment last week when we were talking about vaccines. Vaccines are in medical apartheid, and she does not have them there as these have been a scourge against black people. Harriet A. Washington, medical ethicist, victim of racism, black female, she has vaccines in that book as, oh man, black people created some of these for constructive purposes. That's why she has them in the book. So it's lots to think about, lots to research. I cannot say that I think RFK Jr., oh yeah, he has the Negroes best at heart in terms of his thoughts about autism and vaccines and all the rest of it. This is motivated because he really cares about black people. I do not believe that at all. Let's see. The report where they said President Trump, he was talking about these so-called criminals and scourge that are just being released from prisons in the area of the world known as Venezuela and the Congo, whatever that is. I didn't hear them say that he just made a racist comment or that he's practicing racism. They went to the same old, he's ignorant, he doesn't know, and all the rest of it. Wait a minute. This dude is a millionaire. This dude has been president twice. This isn't even his first go around in the White House. He has traveled all over the world as a private citizen, as president of the United States, all of that. I think he has probably heard about the Congo before. I think he has probably talked to somebody from this part of the world and all of that. I think he's practicing racism, white supremacy. I don't think if you had said, Australia, New Zealand, even some of the so-called white countries that are less powerful, Greece, I don't think, Greece, whatever that is, I don't think you would have said that. That shows you what white people think about the Negro, Dikembe Mutombo, Patrice Lumumba, all of you. That's what we think, whatever that is. At the minimum, you know about that cobalt, you know about that coltan. You want that iPhone, you know about that Congo then, right? Apple event for sure. So get out of here. Come on. He might even had relatives and whatnot. They were at the Rumble in the Jungle. Muhammad Ali and the late George Foreman. Get out of here, man. Come on. And that's one. When he said that, even, if it's whatever, the Congo, and I don't know what that is, and they just let everybody out of prison. Wait, whoa. My short-term memory is not that bad. Didn't that fella just release all of those pedophiles and child rapists and terrorists? Just pardoned all of them. The January 6ers. Remember that? I would have had to bring that up immediately. I ain't heard nobody in Venezuela just mass pardon, stroke of a pen, and all these folks were convicted. Some of them, they pled guilty. Won't no contesting and none of this. Yeah, you're right. I did it. I urinated in the Capitol and ate the pistachios and called them nigger, and I did it all. You're right. Sure enough. Wiped all that. My black brother, Rique Tario, all that. We get free Rachel Powell, didn't he? Turned them all loose and then got the audacity. If that ain't the snowflake calling the milk white, ought to be shamed. Ashley Babbitt would have got a pardon too if she had survived all that. Anyway, when they got to the Pope, I had to make sure I included the Pope. They have so many people talking about, even though the religion on this here planet is the religion of white supremacy. I am not excited about the prospect of a black Pope. It might just contribute to more confusion, just like when we had President Obama or Nelson Mandela, or whenever we have other black firsts in the known universe. Also, I cracked up laughing in that report when they said we might actually have the first black African Pope. I wish I had done my rewind on that one, like, oh man, because I cannot imagine them saying we might actually have the first white British Pope or the first white Canadian Pope. Like, I could not imagine any of that, but we might actually have the first black African Negro Pope. Can you believe that? Yeah, that right there. Yeah, I'm not excited. Yeah. The religion of white supremacy. In fact, I would appreciate it even better if they just made an African Pope and picked a white person and just said, now we got the first African Pope. Hey. Religion of white supremacy. One of our investors, the black African. Swango might even say, hey, I'm African too. I spent, a whole lot of time in Zimbabwe. Oh, can I pause for one? I paused for one. I'm glad I did it this way in terms of priorities. I have to preface it this way. And I had reservations about even mentioning it, but I have to mention it because it will probably impact the scheduling of the program in the coming weeks. So that's something that I do need to say, and probably early and more than once. Okay. I didn't grouse, but I invested the time and energy with the hopes of attending the Seattle International Film Festival again. I went last year for the first time, even though I'm a long time. The entire time the cows has been on the air, I've been right here in Seattle. So I could have been going to the festival, for years at this point. Just been, lame and had never attended, even though I've known about the festival. I do watch television, but for whatever reason, and I would even see the brochures. I would get them and be like, oh, wow, that looks interesting. Oh, wow, that looks interesting. Sometimes I would end up watching the movies, but I just, would not make it to the film festival. For whatever reason, I finally got out of my lethargy last spring, and then now that I have it in my brain computer about, oh, this is the time, okay, boom, got my press credentials. Now, last year, I finally got my hind parts to the festival, but I still didn't do the festival correctly because I had press credentials. That's like, oh man, you get the VIP pass for the festival. That means you can go to any movie you want. And they even have pre-festival events. You can go to those too. Like, they have over 200 films. I'd even have to look back to see the exact count, but it's over 200 films. You could see them all, if it's, humanly possible. But I mean, you could see a rack load of films. If you have a press pass, show up, have your little lanyard, VIP it up, and go watch flicks. Last year, I was really soundtrack to a coup d'etat. Said that was the only film out of 200 plus that I knew about in advance and wanted to see. It was there. Same thing happened this year. There was only one film that I knew about in advance that was on the list that I had already seen, already wanted to see. 40 Acres. What's that one about? The black people on a farm in Canada. This is a Canadian film. On a farm in Canada. What's their nemesis? J. Dahmer, racist cannibals. And it's not just racist cannibals, it's in the description. It is a racist militia of cannibals who are stalking these black people in Canada. I wigged out. I said, that's the only one, because I was mad because that film will be at the Milwaukee Film Festival. And I was like, oh man, I want to go see it. Even though I did say, like, dang, that's kind of lame. They have this in Milwaukee and Dahmer. But it will be here in Seattle. We don't have that same reservation here. I'm super excited. But I said I have to do the festival correctly this time. as a journalist, and they send you so many goodies. And I remember last year for the festival, I remember being overwhelmed because they send you emails with all this great information about the festival and, you know, things that are coming up and all the events, so you know well in advance. For the people that get the hookup, journalist hookup, they send you a spreadsheet. And so it'll have, like I said, it's 200 films. I don't know if anyone has ever sent you a list. Bang, 200 movies. And none of these films have been released, so you've not seen any of them. And half of them, maybe more, are not English. So they might even have funny titles and, you know, all the rest of it. And the people who did them have funny names because they were born in other places and all the rest of it. But, man, like, that is a lot to have to look through. And then, now, why does this require so much brain computing? Because I keep saying, hey, white people are not ignorant about the system of white supremacy racism. This will be my third time going to a film festival. Every film festival that I have attended thus far, white supremacy racism dominates. And it doesn't just dominate like a little bit. It's like almost every film is explicitly about white supremacy. What did I just tell you? The film, what was the film that I was looking for last year? Soundtrack to C.O.W.S, which did get nominated for an Academy Award. Directly white supremacy racism. What's the film that I told you I was looking for this year? 40 Acres. What's that about? Racist cannibals. And the film is being released mainstream on July 4. Even though it is a Canadian film. But I mean, you can't go, white people chose those films. These are not Negro film festivals, and it's going to be mostly white people. It was mostly white people in every audience that I went to for Soundtrack to C.O.W.S. It was overwhelmingly white. Every time. California, here in Seattle, every time. Probably be the same for 40 Acres. Oh, and I mean, practically every film, even those abroad, wherever they're from, they're all about white supremacy racism to one degree or another. And that was the case at the American Film Institute Festival in L.A. I say this time I'm going to do this correctly. I got the credentials and all that. Let's do it up. I start going through that list of 200 films. When I say all of the movies are about white supremacy racism, directly, indirectly, and most of them very directly, they are all about white supremacy racism. All of them. All of them. All of them. Doing the film festival correctly this year, I had to really stop and look at that spreadsheet. Last year, I got it. I invested hours, and I was kind of appalled. Like, what the hell? I did not intend to spend no hours looking at all these movies. All I need to know is when is Soundtrack to C.O.W.S playing, and bam, I'm going to be there and watch that one, and then, you know, I'll just see whatever else. It took a while for it to click in like, man, just go see, you know, all of them. Or at least lots of them. Like, dang, you got a whole pass, and do the festival experience. Ask questions. The people will be there. You can ask questions and write reports. Be active. You don't even just have to be a spectator about it. As I'm talking to people at the festival, the other cool people that have press passes who did this correctly, I started hearing they had watched these films in advance. I said, what? So when you got a press pass, you could have watched them. Oh, you're still niggerish. I see. Well, look here. As a press member, they do send you the link so you can just watch all this in advance. It's like, what? No. This time, even though I was still a little niggardly because I did initially miss the spreadsheet, and so they had to send it to me twice, like, oh man, catch up. Here it is. There you go. Most of the links for the full movie, not just the screener, like they send the lames, the regular folks, they send you the trailer for the movie. If you have press passes, they would just send you the screener for lots of these movies. Just wow. Whew. You can start festivaling like a month in advance. If you have a press pass, like you probably could watch all 200 movies for the most part. Like, check them all out in advance, watch them 1 or 2 times, watch your review, and then you can just go watch on the big screen and enjoy, get your popcorn, or be ready to fire your questions away if the filmmakers are going to be there. doing it correctly as a journalist this time, oh man, now I really get to see like, oh wow, yeah, all of these movies are about racism. Every last one of them. I can't go through a whole list of 200 movies, which I would not do regardless, but oh my God. You could just put 40 Acres to the side. Forget I even said that one. Like, I didn't even want to go see. I don't even have the respect to get the title for it. They have a movie about the white woman who attempted to assassinate President Ford in the 70s. I just told you all it would have meant nothing to me, but the very first frame says the Secret Service allowed her to speak in this film. We are reading about Secret Service agent Abraham Bolden. This shooting happened at the exact same time period we're talking about. Mid-early 70s, a few years afterwards. All connected. And this film is all about COINTELPRO because this white woman is a government informant. They said the Secret Service allowed her to speak. She was a government informant. A government informant in San Francisco. I told you the Symbionese Liberation Army is in this film. Didn't we just talk about them with Jones? This movie is all about San Francisco too. Like I was watching, like, man, I cannot, that's my second home. My second home, Bay Area, but all about San Francisco and COINTELPRO. And I mean, they spell it out. She's a government informant. She's a government informant. She's a government informant. Like, I just kept saying, like, what? I wasn't even going to watch this film. It's just like, whatever, man. When is 40 Acres playing? But no. Now I can watch this film a few times. And I think the filmmaker is going to be there. Like, oh, man, add that to the list. I kept looking down. Documentary about Nazis and what they looted during World War II. I thought white people were ignorant about racism. Oh, when you start branching to the foreign films. I looked and they said they have one about the victims from the Christchurch shooting and how they responded. I said, whoa. Isn't the Christchurch shooting, isn't that in New Zealand? Where that little race soldier went and shot up all of it? Yes, that's a yes. Yeah. Matter of fact, haven't I said for years the C.O.W.S is the metronome? You can set your watch. Just last week, we were talking about in Zimbabwe, local system of white supremacy racism. They're giving so-called reparations to individuals classified as white over confiscated farmlands. Lo and behold, one of the international films, a white family in Zimbabwe during the racial strife. I fell out on the floor. I don't even need to see it anymore. Add that one to the, I think I already got that film too. Add that one to the, and it just kept going on and on. I forgot the name of the film. What was the shooting at the Atlanta massage parlor where the race soldier went in there and shot up all those non-white, non-black people, so-called Asians? Movie about that. They didn't make this film festival for Gus T, I don't think. But man, what's one I do remember? Slanted. I didn't get that one. They don't have distribution yet. What's Slanted about? Non-white female, and she's going to see if she can transmogrify to get white features. Didn't Dr. Welsing say if I got that pill, you get blonde hair and blue eyes and light skin, I would be a trillionaire? Every single film is about white supremacy. I said directly, like I'm sure they got some that, it's kind of indirect. No. It's directly because they got a whole documentary about black farmers being thrown off their land. Like it was every single film. It's 200 on the list. Every single film is about white supremacy, racism, and it's all over the world. How are you classified as white and you go to the film festival and you are ignorant about white supremacy in really any era? How would that be? I just told you when I was at the American Film Institute Festival in L.A., that's how I saw the order. What is that about? White terrorism in Washington State that did leak down to California. How are you? It was a packed house. It wasn't niggers. How are you ignorant about white supremacy, racism, and that's what you sit around and watch at the film festival? Anyway, I would encourage my recommendation, since we love TV so much, if they have a film festival in your area, you can attend, but I would say at least make an effort to apply for journalist credentials. If you have a blog, website, vlog, podcast, book, anything. And some of this would be easy to establish if you know in advance when the festival is going to be. See if you can apply, and that way you can go and be active. You can go to the events, ask questions. Same thing I said about court, except this time you can ask questions. Maybe see the film in advance so you can watch it a few times. You'll be really informed about what happens. So you can ask some really poignant questions about the character development or, script, whatever else, budget, whatever, racism, whatever. But, man, at any rate, I'm going to try to go to as many films as possible throughout this process. It doesn't start till next month. That's why I said that's even clowning. Like, the festival is next month. But if you have press credentials, start watching films right now. Time the festival comes, you could have seen them all 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Be ready to roll. Maybe not that because there's so many, but you could at least see them all once or twice and be ready to roll by the time the festival comes around. It is staggering. White people are not ignorant. And the local, that's what I meant too. Like I said, in Milwaukee, they had that documentary, Something in the Water. They will have generally at film festivals, they will have a lot of local content that will also be about white supremacy, racism. Anywho, Slanted. I cannot wait. Trends. I told you, I said that was a dominant theme at the festival last year. Blonde. I even mentioned that with the McVeigh biopic that just came out, that we just had the filmmakers, the Otts, on the program. Why we got all these blonde people? We got white genetic recessive characteristics that we always have to worship and glorify. Anyway, doing it up. Gus T, film critic extraordinaire. Back to the news segments. And again, I did not mention the film festival to hear anything about any movies, TV, festival that you all attended. I am not interested in hearing entertainment from black people at all, ever. I do not care about Sinners. You can go talk to my BFF, Amy Goodman, about Sinners. Matter of fact, I totally forgot. Ryan Coogler was at the film festival in L.A. He did the interview for the movie about The Fire Inside. The female boxer, her name just slips my, I don't watch female boxing. Her name slips my mind for the moment. I have to go back to get it. But he did the interview during the Q&A for all of the filmmakers, because they had some of the actors and actresses from the movie and the director and all the rest of it were there. And he did the Q&A session for Fire Inside down in L.A. But I did not. Oh, my goodness, Ryan Coogler. I love Fruitvale Station, because I did not love Fruitvale Station. And I generally do not enjoy films with a lot of black people in them, or even the movies that black people tend to enjoy. I did not, I was going to say I didn't like Marvel's Black Panther. I didn't even watch Marvel's Black Panther. In fact, the way you all have been talking about Ryan Coogler's Sinners and Marvel's Black Panthers, if I could use my one profanity for the year, you sound exactly like those white bitches in my yoga class, because they loved Marvel's Black Panther too. And I didn't think they were about replacing white supremacy with justice, so that's what's in my brain computer. Now we all know that's what's in my brain computer. Every time I hear a black person going on and on and on and on, I love Chadwick Boseman, but about Marvel's Black Panther or anything else, Sinners, you sound exactly like those racist white bitches in my yoga class. Back to the news. Keep it G-rated. When they talked about the Easter clothes, I remembered Shamika Harris. She threw Grandma under the bus, and I said I was so stunned, because we were talking about Andre Bloom in the book club. Like, dang, she didn't put grandma out hats and all the rest of it. But I did think of that immediately when they were talking about the Easter segment. In my view, the only thing that needed to be said for that long Easter segment that was 10 minutes with NPR and Aisha Roscoe, and oh, we got to step out and get my new gaiters, and woo, we got to get my child, we got the new suit, and my daughter got to look like mom, and woo, you talk about worthy of great pity. The only thing that needed to be said, Hollis Booker, privileged black male victim of white supremacy, I know he had some fresh gaiters on this week. He said, as sharecroppers, we didn't have a lot of means, but what we did have, we made sure that clothes that we were going to wear were pressed and clean and shoes well shined and ready. It's a matter of presenting yourself before white God, he didn't say the white part, as we saw it, and letting the Lord know that we are looking for something better in the year to come, and that tradition, it was carried over from slavery. Aisha Roscoe, NPR. And they could have wrapped it. We didn't need nothing else. All the rest of that, all of these little slave rituals, and really some of that's in the hair braiding too. All of that. That's why I said I don't have no connection about nothing on no black culture. I don't get excited about hanging out with black people. Matter of fact, I just came on here. For Black History Month, and I told you I was repulsed because I heard a black person get up and say, at a museum no less, black culture is braiding. And they were talking about synthetic because they had pictures of synthetic hair in this. That's black culture. And I said, really? And I said, I don't never hear nobody say black culture is Rosa Parks. Black culture is Nelson Mandela. Black culture is Patrice Lumumba. Black culture is replacing white supremacy with justice. I do not ever hear that. I hear black culture is braiding hair, looking cute for Easter Sunday, playing Dougie Fresh loud at 11 o'clock in the morning, or 5 a.m., or 3 a.m. That's what I hear for Negro culture. All of that is trash. All of that is trash. All of that is trash. That's how we ended up with Cedric Wilson. Remember that? You forgot about that one. Beaten to death, 20 years old. That's black culture. Trash. Anyway, the hair thing, we talked about that before. All that hair talk, everything about black culture is super unhealthy. The food, the music, the hair, it just goes on and on. It's just unhealthful. We brag about doing unhealthful things, like all of that. Just throw it in the trash and just pick things that are healthy. I think we talked about hair before, and they said, well, you do the braiding and all this stuff because it takes a whole lot of time. You're going to do natural hair and all the rest of it. I said, you know what else takes up a lot of time? Cancer. And I said, that is a mic drop. Let's see. The last thing I'll get in, the measles, and back to those vaccines, I am not a doctor. I'm not giving out medical advice. I will say, drink more water. I tell Miss Scarborough that all the time. I tell Miss Scarborough that all the time. I have to add an asterisk. Drink more bottled water, reverse osmosis filtered water. Do not drink the tap water in Milwaukee. I have to put it that way. Like, woo, Jesus, I do not want to go there. But when they talked about Kansas, we had 2 interruptions for Kansas. At the end, missing black people, and then earlier for the measles outbreak. When we had Justice for Wyandotte, black females, as a guest on the program earlier this year, they were talking about Roger Golubsky and all the raped, missing black females, terrorized black people in Kansas specifically. They shared they have a tuberculosis outbreak in Kansas. True. And now a measles outbreak. We played that report about Texas a few weeks back. You heard a white doctor, and he said, I think you have increasing numbers of these wealthy white people in particular who are saying, I'm not doing no vaccines. I don't want to do no vaccine. All that conspiracy. Okay. You start having pockets of people who are not vaccinated. You have vulnerable populations, I say. Who is more vulnerable than the Negro? People who are already in poor health, don't have access to quality health, quality foods, are contaminated, bad water. These people might be really susceptible to all types of problems. Now you got tuberculosis and measles outbreak in Kansas. That's what I had said before, where I could easily see this being a white sacrifice type of a thing where, hey, it's too many Negroes and we're anxious about white genetic annihilation or whatever else. So even if some white people die in the midst of all this, we have better resources. We'll be able to navigate this much better. The Negroes are in poor health anyway. That just like with COVID-19, oh man, and it might even be that more non-white people say, yeah, we're not going to do vaccines and we're not going to do the rest of it either. And it really compromises their health. I am not a doctor. I'm not recommending anyone get vaccinated or anything else. Mama C talked about that before and said it's so confusing and difficult. You just have to do your research and you can probably find whatever information to support whatever viewpoint you have. So have fun with all that. But I am saying that I could easily, you're already in a situation where drugstores are closing down. They said in Wisconsin, we got this lead problem. They went to the CDC for help. They said, we can't even help because we got firing. So y'all, do the best. Man, like what? In that sort of environment, like, wow, I do not know how I feel about now we got to reject even more health and safety measures. And we need more black doctors. Having more black people who study health, medicine, that would be super helpful. We have Cal's listeners who are in med school right now. Like, we need way more of that. Science. Dr. Welsing was a scientist, medical doctor. We need like oodles and boodles, more of that, people being serious. That is why reading is more important than watching television. It is way more important to be reading, being a scientist, than going to the damn film festival. Facts. The number is 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Folks have commentary not related to television or Area 8. Let's see. Shamika Harris should be with us. All love out to Grandmama, and I hope she got to wear that same thing I said before. I hope she got to wear something really dashing, cute, and brand new for Easter Sunday, even though showing off, we really can let that slave culture, we got so much of that slave culture. But yes, love, shout out to Grandma. Shamika Harris, others who dialed in should be with us.
Evening, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I am quite sure my grandma got dressed up and went to church on Easter Sunday. I'm telling you, that's her favorite thing to do. So reference the segments you played. The first one, I think it was the first one. It said Maine was the oldest population in the U.S. I didn't know that. Let me see. The Vatican, Catholic Church, Pope passed away the day after Easter at the age of 88. All the news coverage I saw about him or listened to after he died, pretty much every segment said that he advocated for, and it used the word, marginalized people. It made it seem like they were talking about non-white people, but they never said non-white people. Everybody kept saying marginalized. And also, they kept saying they were calling him Latin American, saying, he was a pope from Latin America, like he was a non-white person. But I think the pope was a white man, but they kept calling him Latin American. And even in that segment you played, it said he was a tireless champion of the poor. Non-white people are pretty poor, but it just never said that in any of the segments. The one where they were talking about the hairstyles, and a lady said some people chose to wear Eurocentric hairstyles as a means of safety for a lot of reasons. And I'm paraphrasing now, but basically she said, like, choosing to wear your hair in a white way, that could mean a job. And that's true. And that is safety. I mean, you know, being able to have yourself a place to reside and some food. A job, in a way, it's not safety, but it's definitely safer than not having a job. And later on in that segment, they were saying it's hard to say what the FDA will do in response to the study. And I just think in the Trump administration, FDA is probably not going to do anything about that. And also, they said it was up to the manufacturers to do the right thing. Okay. The manufacturers have been putting out a product that is carcinogenic. It will probably cost more to make the product not carcinogenic, and if they don't have to, just why would they? They don't care about black people. I don't think they'll change it if they don't have to. Let me see. The segment about the students being monitored across Washington State via their school laptops, I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense that if someone gives you a piece of electronic equipment, nothing you do on this equipment is going to be private, yes. But I didn't know that they had equipment that they were installing on the computer. And they said it wasn't password protected, and they shared names, which seemed to be a violation of, I don't know, law, public policy. And some students were accessing these things late at night away from school. And so that's not something that you would think is school related. You know, maybe these children think, oh, well, I'm on the computer at 10 p.m. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And it's all being monitored. And the question was asked, what surprised you the most? And the lady said they were disclosing a lot of private information. Like, they were thinking of those laptops as a place to think and reflect, and, you know, it's not just their schoolwork. And also, she said that all those forms that parents sign at the beginning of the year, they disclose the monitoring, but it's not in clear or bold language, words. We should pay attention to them. I noticed that N-word, the history of the N-word thing in Elk Grove, the name of the school was Catherine Albioni. Sounds a lot like albino. Kansas City Police Department. The black male who was calling law enforcement officers to try to find out if they knew anything about his son. You know, he's just calling, trying to see if they know anything. And one cop says, we will not know anything until we find bones. You know, the dad said he was so frustrated he hung up, but wow. You know, just because someone is missing, it doesn't mean that they're dead. And for the law enforcement officer to say that, well, I'm going to say it's inappropriate, incorrect. I don't know the racial classification of the law enforcement officer that said that, but if he was white, talking to a black person saying that sounds like an act of racism to me. And also the police were talking like the families need to be more responsible, like it's their fault that their attempted family members are missing. It's massively incorrect, super insensitive. I don't know. White people talk to us like we don't have any feelings, like we're just animals, we're not people. Some interesting stuff I saw over the last week in the newspaper. They were talking about George Santos, and, you know, when he first went to Congress and got in trouble for all the lying and stuff, I really was unsure about his racial classification. I did not know if he was a white person or a non-white person. Now, I'm pretty confident that George Santos is a non-white person. Last Friday, he was sentenced to 7 years, well, 87 months. That's a little more than 7 years. And he has to pay $374,000 in restitution. Also, there was an article in the New York Times, this is Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, who actually sounds like a non-white female. I'm not sure. I did not Google a picture of her. But they opened up two schools in the Bay Area, and now they're going to close them. It seems like maybe, okay, I guess she's not white, but maybe Mark Zuckerberg wants to distance himself from anything that can be thought of as DEI, so he's going to stop assisting all those non-white people at the school. You know, it was supposed to be, hey, these children have access to education, access to health care, and a social worker all under one roof, and they're going to close the school in summer of 2026. A child in the article was quoted as saying, "Mommy, the guy who's been giving money to our school doesn't want to give it to us anymore." And that's all I have.
Much obliged, Ms. Harris. Mark Zuckerberg, racist suspect, was just testifying in Congress. They're talking about breaking up some of the monopolies, maybe. His wife, Priscilla Chan, for sure, classified as not white. The same metric or test that I brought up often. So if you're going in the oven next 10 seconds, unless you can grab someone classified as white and maybe they can advocate for you, Miss Chan is going in the oven. She is going to need to find a white person herself. You cannot grab her at all on no day. The report about the Washington State schools monitoring the children on the devices, there's so many policies like that in schools that are in place because of Dill, Reb. In fact, I didn't include reports on it. I could have took my black or sick white brother, Phoenix Ickner, down in Florida, or right in Milwaukee, Nikita Kasap. There are so many white deviants who've gone and shot up the school and all the rest of it. That's why they have those sort of policies in place. Make sure, they're not talking about going to do this and blow up the school and all this other. But, man, that's something you want to be aware of, that they might have these devices that they're tracking everything that you type. In fact, we've heard this before. We've had other attempted parents who've talked about different electronic devices that are school property, but they're issued to your child, and they can access the camera, they can access the microphone, they can perhaps even turn all this on when you think it's off, so they can be listening when you're not even engaged in school activities. Oh, we heard what we think is domestic abuse in the house. We're mandated reporters, so we got to turn you in and all this. Like, oh man, it's quite a bit. Like she said, where now they did explain that they have this software that monitors all the typing and everything that you communicate on this device, but it's not presented in explicit and easy to understand language. That is so frequent in the system of white supremacy racism. Really, one of the ways that racists deliberately conceal constructive information from non-white people. And then you add that to, you got generations of non-white people that racists have deliberately kept education from, made sure that they're illiterate, generations of illiteracy, and then you're going to make it really deliberately wordy, circumloquacious in the policy about how we're going to be snooping on your child, maybe your whole family. It's so much to talk about if you're going to have children, system of white supremacy racism. Like, that's another one that's worth turning the TV off for at least 30 minutes. Other folks who dialed in, if we have other parents dealing with those electronic devices and such with your offspring, let us know. Victim in New Jersey should be with us as well.
Hey, Gus. Yes, the last caller spoke about the Pope, and when you said that, it was curious that they referred to, maybe a Pope, and it will be a black Pope, from Africa. And I also did note that often they refer to Pope Francis as being South American. Just like the previous caller said, it can be deceptive. Like, that's a white man, And I think I'm not sure if the Catholic Church is seeing a decline. So just like when they referred to Pope Francis as the first South American Pope. I think he's from Argentina. I think that's also a ploy to keep people engaged, to keep the ranks of the Catholic Church strong. And so if there was to be a Black African Pope, I would think that would be like a how can I say a campaign to encourage more followers to join or to stay with the Catholic Church that's in the continent of Africa. That could be, but the Pope was also often always referred to the first South American Pope. And being though we have we had book reads about South America and its Nazi influence. Argentina was also a country that took in, from what I've read, a lot of Nazis that defected from Germany, along with Brazil. Argentina is right up there. And so I would love to see the lineage of Pope Francis. Maybe his lineage is of that of people who defected from Germany after World War II. You know what, Gus? You brought up Amy Goodman, right? So I just wanted to also state this, because I remember a while ago I said, I used to really be engaged with Democracy Now! I mean, I thought Amy Goodman was a freedom fighter. I was, in New York City, New Jersey area, we tuned in to WBAI and they carry Democracy Now! But as I became a little bit more informed about racism, I see her racism, and I don't tune into Democracy Now! Like I used to, but I still do, because I definitely do consume a lot of news. But Democracy Now! From here and there, I do listen. So I said, if you asked me a question, you said, well, Democracy Now!, they report on the news, and I said, nothing seems to be solved. And you said, what's the difference between Democracy Now! and the C.O.W.S? I would say that Democracy Now! adds to the confusion. They do a lot of racial narrowing. They place racism solely on what white people call the right or conservatives. And I've noticed that pattern from Democracy Now! So a lot of the information, some of the information is informative, but they do a lot of racial narrative. Even when you do interviews, hands down, I haven't seen anybody that interviews somebody that wrote a book as thorough as the C.O.W.S. I see her interview people that write books, and I don't really see her thoroughly going into the book, into the text, and asking questions about the text, like the C.O.W.S. So that's the difference between Democracy Now! and the C.O.W.S. Maine having the oldest population, that would be another great study, to see how these racially restricted areas, are a lot of them around the country having the same issues of Maine, this Asian population, where you have a lot of the younger population that, they go off to college. And I want to know, do a lot of them that go off to college, do they stay? If they go to college maybe in NYU, or they go to some college in California, or even in New Jersey, Princeton, Rutgers, and when they come to these areas, do they stay and not go to Maine and just leave grandpa, uncle, and mommy off to just die? And the town that they came from, just dies off. So I wonder that'll be something that I would like to see some studying. RFK, you're right. I mean, it's admirable. I mean, that he's trying to find out what's the cause of the rise of autism. I'm not sure if he's a doctor. So just like Tim Wise called Francis Cress Welson's thesis on racism, pseudoscience bullshit. Unfortunately, RFK's view on the causes of autism could be pseudoscience bullshit. But unfortunately, his is backed by power now that he is in the Trump administration, and he has a budget and a staff to back pseudoscience bullshit if it is that. And like you said, I'm skeptical because this is a man that he doesn't even want to call what's going on in Gaza a genocide. So I really can't believe that he really cares about the children in the United States, black people, black children, but you can't call out the massacre of children in Gaza. So I'm real skeptical of him. However, I hear that he is going after additives that's being put in the foods, and basically trying to ban those unnecessarily additives that may have been cancer causing. So okay, cool. 1 point. 1 point for him. As far as the call with the police officer that said that real discourteous thing to the person that was looking for their family member. You know what, Gus? I'm becoming a little bit more. No, I'm courteous for the most part, but I'm courteous when I need to be. But I'm becoming less courteous, because for situations like this, because when white people, and we're assuming that this officer was white, when white people get in power, being white is power. But when they get in power backed by government, they really show out, So just, again, like I said, just today I'm going to the gym, walking into the gym. I'm in an area that's predominantly white that I moved to. And, the door is locked. I left my phone in the gym. And, I knew because every time this happens, I've done it before. When I try to get through the door is locked. They say, hey, the gym is closed. You know what? I think if that happens again, I'm going to practice not being courteous. And to let them know that, thank you, Genghis, the door is locked. So obviously the gym is closed. I left something inside. I don't need you to inform me that the gym is closed. I left something in it. So, just something off topic from the cows. But but I'll close.
Rapist Negro beaten in New Jersey. Update at 11. Jim Sass says he sassed white woman. We'll look out for the update. But I certainly grasp. I mean, there's so much discourtesy directed at black people, particularly I'd say black males in public space. And places that you frequent often where it's the same sort of mistreatment. Like, yes, this is not ignorance. This is tacky racism and me not having access to the facility. Man, come on. And people leave things at the gym all the time. Just want to get my Crocs. I left my water bottle. I left my towel. Come on. That right there in terms of RFK, I would say before we get to, you want to jump on vaccines or whatever. I mean, that's great if you want to investigate what's causing autism, great. But before we go hard on that it's vaccines causing this, and in fact, I have been hearing that term frequently of late pseudoscience in conversations about RFK, whether it's pseudoscience, promotion of pseudoscience, but it's pseudoscience, as he said, backed with white power. I say it's not pseudoscience, so there we go. But I would, before we get to the vaccines and the autism, it seems like there's not a whole lot of controversy about red dye number 40. Like, I haven't heard anybody other than the people who put red dye and got to sell us Skittles and Cheetos and all the rest of it, except for them, I haven't heard anybody say that, now wait a minute, red dye number 40 is great. That's the best thing ever, and we all need loads. I haven't heard anybody say that. As there seems to be less controversy, how about you see if you can get white people to stop poisoning us with red dye number 40? Because I've already seen the reports where the Fruit Loops people and the Nabisco people and the Cheetos people, RFK don't boss me. You don't tell me. We got a long, successful history of Cheetos, and we got lots of customers who love them some Cheetos, addicted out their brain computer, but we got lots of people who love flaming hot Cheetos. RFK don't boss us, and we not changing up nothing. Show me that you can get these white people to get the red dye number 40 out of the Cheetos, then we can get to, okay, what's up with this autism? Is it the vaccines, or what is it? Let's get red dye number 40 first, and let's see how you deal with these white gangsters, and let's see how you deal with Nabisco. Let's see it. Cheetos, let's see it. RFK. My Amy Goodman, she did have Ron Kugler on this week. She thought Sinners was important, my BFF. I watch Democracy Now! From time to time. Ron Kugler was on this week. I watch her from time to time because she does have constructive information, but, man, racist, white supremacist, I mean, you're supposed to say suspect and all, but, woo, man, I remember her conduct. This is like for years when Obama was in office, as he said, the racial narrowing to make it seem like it's just the old crotchety Republican white people that are racist. Just, we got lots of, not all of us white peoples is racists. And in fact, it's even as slick as when they spoke about Timothy McVeigh in the segment today, 30-year recognition, they called him an anti-government extremist. Wasn't Tim McVeigh a racist? He was selling the Turner Diaries, talking bad about niggers in Buffalo. I mean, what? Wasn't Tim McVeigh a racist? Extremist, which, I mean, what does that mean? Anti-government? Racist? Anyway, but sophisticated, refined old Amy Goodman. Lots of non-white people thought she was a freedom fighter. Old Amy Goodman out there on the front line. I remember when Hurricane Katrina happened, she was down there in the flood waters. Yes, talking about all of it, getting into the nooks and I have to look back to see if she was using the term racism to describe everything that transpired at that time. But I mean, yes, Amy Goodman can cover and share a lot of constructive information. And there's even some overlap. You can see we've had some of the same guests in terms of folks who've come to the cows, have also been guests on Democracy Now! Gary Rivlin is one that I can think of. He covered Hurricane Katrina. You can hear the way that she discussed hurricane, and same subject matter. A.C. Thompson, I think, would be another one. Same subject matter, Hurricane Katrina. You can hear the sort of questions that we asked, what we thought were important to discuss about the book or what have you, A.C. Thompson's articles, and then what Amy Goodman focused on, what she thought was important. Does she use the term racism, white supremacy? And Amy Goodman has a whole stash. Like you can see she has a whole gang of people to help her and get footnotes and put sticky notes on the book and get sound clips or video clips together and all that old good stuff. And she's still lame and trifling and suspected race soldier for all these decades. Anywho, she had Johan Greenmont soundtrack to that would be one. Stop being lazy. Get Johan Greenmont Prey on the program, and then you can hear what did I think was important from the film. What did she think was important from the film? I even beat her to it because I was talking about that film last year. She didn't start talking about that film until it got nominated for an Academy Award. So we were way ahead of her on that one. Other folks, they have commentary to share. The number 605-313-5164. The code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Hand up in the next couple minutes or two if you have additional commentary to share. The segment in Kansas where they were talking about the missing black people, it was Willard Rawls Jr. He was calling for his son Brandon, who was 16 at the time and went missing in 2001. He said he called the enforcement officers and they said, hey, we will let you know when we find buried gold teeth. We will get to you. In the meantime, don't call us no more. What? What? Woo! I've been playing that clip for years from Pulp Fiction. I think Harvey Weinstein. He going to criminal trial again, unless I've been misinformed. But Pulp Fiction, climax of the film, the great Sam Jackson, but the climax of the film is, hey, we going to throw old black male who was killed accidentally. Then we going to take old Marvin and throw him in the junkyard. Nobody who'll be missed. That's what they could have told Mr. Rawls Jr. Your child Brandon, nobody who'll be missed. And that's kind of the attitude black people in Wisconsin. That's why 3 years, no task force for missing and murdered black females. Sade Robinson, no task force. Even at times they said, we don't really have the money for, go out here and mope about no missing black female. I mean, maybe I'll do a bake sale or something, see if you can get a few nickels together for that. Nobody who'll be missed. Anywho, let's see. We didn't miss anybody. Commentary, folks. Everybody satisfied? Grand. I did think it was important. They were talking about the opting out, and that's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And they're saying that now maybe we're going to do away with so-called opting out, where you can't just sign a form or what have you and say, well, no, my child is not going to participate in sex education, or my child is not going to participate in your LGBTQ program. I think Bay Area Mom had talked to us about that before as well, where they were getting upset because people were opting out of the Pride Project in California, Bay Area, same place where they were closing the schools, Mark Zuckerberg closing the schools down and such. But I find that interesting. The opt-out issue is coming because I guess people classified as white, some of them are upset that they think you should not be able to opt out of LGBTQ content. That is fascinating because people have opted out of Black History Month and, as they said, sex education and religious issues in school. They've opted out of that for years. But at this moment, so-called LGBTQ, now, that's where we draw the line, and maybe we need to do away with the whole opt-out altogether. Like, wow, that is... Why is it that you have to be a part of the gay LGBTQ whatever program? Because they always keep adding letters. Why is it mandatory that you have to participate in all that? I don't understand. Or is it that integral to the system of white supremacy, racism, anti-sex? It's mad. And I mean, did you hear some of the content? They said they had the book about the dog that gets lost at the gay pride parade. What? And if I say, nah, I don't really want my child, well, up, you got to, this is important now, see, you got to learn how to be a quality citizen. What? what age group are we even talking? Like, wait a minute, we talk about this is like elementary school? Like, why is this the most important thing to focus on in elementary school? It's way other things that matter of fact, can we safely drink the water here? How about that? Let's get to that first. Matter of fact, the water, red dye number 40. Let's get that first. Then we can get to, they got all the way to is the Supreme Court doing anything about making sure, hey, we're going to have lead-free water in all of the schools. We're going to do that like right now. And then we're going to get red dye number 42. We done with Cheetos. How can't they do something about that? Come on, man. Let's see. Soon folks are satisfied. We'll be here at minimum. Neutralizing Workplace Racism Thursday. And Catherine Massey Book Club on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Per usual, check social media for updates, programs in the interim. Hopefully as the weather gets warmer, folks can get outside, get a little water, stay safe. Counting down the days to Milwaukee. Danger zone. Sobriety would be best. We need high-functioning brain computers to solve our problems. They are immense. Creator, we ask that you help us maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately, not watching TV. Help me to stop wasting non-white people's time and energy, including my own. Minimize contact, minimize conflict. Stop name-calling black people. Stop being discourteous to black people. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring for white people to monitor and spy on with their latest technological advancements. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition.
Mm-hmm.
Even my conditioning has been conditioned.